Hey everyone, welcome to Smash Trivia. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia to follow everything happening with me. I'll be the one with the big old green head in the profile picture. I'm so excited to get into this. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, in this series, I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies and TV shows, and maybe at some point I could get into comics, but that's a while off. Hope you enjoy. Smash Trivia presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening if they could please do something for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all of your friends because I really want to get the Gamma Analysis to be big enough that by the time She-Hulk comes out, maybe I could become press and either get the first episode early or be invited to the premiere or even just get one of the press goodie bags. For this episode, I'm going to review The Incredible Hulk 77, episode 12, which is the first season finale of the show. Our co-host today, as always with the 70s episodes, is Keith, aka KeithSketches. That's aka Filmkritter with a K. How are you doing, Keith?
Hello. I'm doing quite well. I cannot believe we made it through one season, and surprisingly is a 12-episode season, which to me seems like today's TV. But it's, if it's the pilot season, the 1st season, they probably only signed up for that chunk or that half of the year. But I'm stoked. This was an awesome ride.
If I remember right, isn't shows like The Office and Parks and Recs, their first seasons, aren't they like 6 episodes or something, and then they go into normal size seasons?
That's right. Yeah, it would depend on whenever it got picked up. It would be probably 13, anywhere from 6 to 13 episodes is what they get signed up for. And then if it's later in the year, they'll say, okay, we're just going to bring the rest over to season 2.
Okay, interesting.
But it used to be that every show had 24 episodes a season.
Yeah, I never ever had understood before why they had done that with The Office and Parks and Recs, because it does feel weird when you're looking at all the seasons and be like, everything else they're close to the same amount of episodes, but then the first season is so much shorter.
Yeah, and it's weird because The Office specifically is more of it's a remake of the British series, and they call it a series instead of a season over there, but it's 6 episodes is normal for them, and 2 seasons is normal for them. So for them to go to 24 episodes a season and 9 seasons, it's like a completely different phenomenon for a remake.
Another show that I think did that it really did feel weird when I watched it of how quickly the first season went was Breaking Bad. Have you watched Breaking Bad?
Oh, I've watched it multiple times. I feel like we could do a podcast about Breaking Bad sometime. The amount of times I've seen that, so good.
Oh, it's such a great show. But like the first season, it ends after I think 6 or 5 episodes. And it doesn't even really feel like it's a season finale.
No, it's arguably the hardest season to get through as well, as far as drama and pacing. It's a lot slower because it's building so much groundwork for Walt and Jesse.
Yeah. And like things like that I find really interesting within a streaming age, because when you're binging a show, if an episode doesn't really feel like it is a finale episode, you don't realize you ended a season.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, there's like a very distinct feeling usually with the finale episode that leaves you wanting more, so much more than the last cliffhanger you expected. Like it's got to be the biggest cliffhanger of the year. Otherwise, it just feels like another. We're definitely going to address that tonight with this episode. Holy crap!
Definitely, because this episode definitely doesn't feel much like a season finale.
But I would argue that it's strangely enough the episode prior that you were saying, why didn't they make this the finale? It felt like either one could have been, like, it didn't feel like one was like that much more of a cliffhanger than the other. You know what I mean? I think the fact that he did go to a radioactive like lab again to try and gamma radiate himself back into a cure was like season finale material, but then it got overshadowed entirely by that earthquake. So it's like, I don't know. This doesn't,
it's just it feels a little weird. Like, I think just because of the he's going to this gamma lab to try and fix this is so important to his story that it makes sense for a season finale. But like also that episode and this episode, neither of them has any kind of cliffhanger at all.
Yeah, it's the same feeling as every other episode. It's
Yeah.
it's as though they didn't really have time to make a final episode for the season, so they just had a bunch that they could just throw at the wall and say, okay, you guys choose whichever one you want us to end on.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's because as I said, I think I mentioned last time that you have to back then and you have to think that most likely because of it being in TV, like a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm gonna check this episode out because this is a big episode, this is a special episode, and finales are considered that. But if someone who hadn't been watching the whole season of the Hawk wasn't terribly into it, they go into this episode think it's going to be a big episode, a determining factor whether they're going to continue the show. I don't know if I would continue the show based on that, because it's because like you would come out of this episode being like, why did I choose to come back to watch this episode? It's not that important.
Yeah. I think we get spoiled these days, especially like we've gone through and we're kind of still in a golden age of television where episodes popularity and TV shows popularity are very heavily based on story arcs that follow through the entire season, and you get really invested in these, like, oh my god, it's like watching a 9-hour movie as opposed to some like episodic segmented. Whereas back then the relationship with TV, I believe, from what I understand anyways, what I've studied, is they go by episode. It was much more about, okay, what's something to put on to entertain, and then we'll just we'll have cook dinner and do the things around, and it was just mainly a way to pass time as opposed to something you would want to sit and binge even if you had the opportunity. So it's like it's like sitcoms were way more popular then, and now it's like they're a little more few and far between, because it was so simple to just sit down, see one story arc, the end. You knew that the reliability of that next episode was going to be everybody back where they were, type of thing. So the season finales, I feel like, are a thing that they've mastered closer to our time.
Like I remember when I was a kid, though I actually like there being episodes that don't really matter to a storyline. I just don't think that a season finale should be like that. I think I like a lot of it. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I hate the frustration that people have about filler episodes, because I don't think every episode should have to be super important. I think some episodes should just fill out the world that you're trying to immerse yourself in. But and also, like with comic book shows, you like the quote unquote filler episodes give you a chance to have more deep cut villains. And that's a big thing.
100%. I would argue that we have a similar, when you're posting this episode, it'll be much later, I'm sure, but the amount of discussion I've seen online about the most recent Moon Knight episode, people are saying the last couple episodes feel like a lot of padding and a lot of filler, and it just because they don't have the big superhero, they don't have Moon Knight featured. But it's like that's basically a person watching the episode, not seeing what they tuned in for and assuming it's filler, assuming it's padding. And it's like, no, there's stuff going on that other people are very invested in.
There was a lot that happened in this week's episode of Moon Knight. That episode of Moon Knight was one that I got emotional watching because of my childhood. I bet you probably got a little bit too emotional from it, for the same reason. I think that this episode, this episode was really fantastic. It's not the route that I expected to go, not even the route I probably wanted it to go, but I think it still was a fantastic route that they went.
Yeah. And like very fresh and revealing and honest takes on things that you have not seen. And I would say arguably a lot of what we've seen in Moon Knight has not been what we've seen in the MCU, and I love that about the MCU. If they can continue to be one step ahead of the expectations that are made for them, they're going to be fine. They're going to keep, they're not going to fall into that superhero fatigue. Like if there is anybody experiencing superhero fatigue, they've done it. They've experienced it, and they can, they can fall off and they can not be fans anymore. But I guarantee shows like this are going to make more fans as opposed to less.
Superhero fatigue aside, I don't like when people mention that, because the thing is, I think it's a really dumb idea. If Marvel has been able to go 100 years in comics, and comic fans never got superhero fatigue, you think in 10 to 15 years there should be a superhero that would be considered superhero fatigue in the MCU. The thing that I don't think most of those people realize, Marvel has already done what they need to do to fix that. Do you know what they did?
What do they do?
Well, they made it so instead of having one big storyline of the Infinity Saga, they have a massive amount of different storylines that don't all connect to each other.
Yes.
So if you wanted to, you can just follow one storyline. You don't have to follow every storyline if you are starting to get fatigued.
And how fitting is it that they do that in a phase where they're explaining and dealing with things like time streams and multiverses. That theme alone, and then on top of that, just the marketing theme of it matches up so perfectly. You can follow the WandaVision through to the Doctor Strange and just have to watch those in order to know what's going on. You don't have to watch everything else in order to get it. So I get what you mean.
That's the exact same thing that they did with the comics. Is like they have so many different storylines going on in the comics, but you don't have to read every single comic in existence to know what's going on in them. It'd
be nearly impossible to do so.
There is probably tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of comics in existence. You can't expect people to read all of them.
It's impossible. I think when people talk about, like, I started hearing about the idea of, or the phrase superhero fatigue or superhero movie fatigue because of the popularity. I think the naysayers just end up assuming that it's gonna pass. It's a phase. Well, they're only basing that on the fact that so many other things are cyclical in their popularity. Like for a while, movies about vampires was incredibly popular, and then it wasn't. And then shows and movies about zombies became popular again, but they always repeat themselves. They come back. Superheroes were never as popular as they've been since the 2002 Spider-Man or the X-Men movies on. They've only crescendoed, and they've never really ebbed and flowed like that. They've never really been cyclical. It's just grown, and it's because people continue to do them right. And people give every credit to Kevin Feige, but there's a ton more people that you can give credit to.
There's definitely a lot of people give credit to for it. I mainly would give credit to Kevin Feige just because he is the first one who created an interconnected universe. He's
very passionate about every project too. He's just individually very passionate about them.
Say what you will about maybe like Marvel movies or something, and you think that they aren't the high caliber movies in the world, but the fact of the matter is Kevin Feige might possibly be the most genius mind in the world of movie business. He has created the biggest franchise ever, and I think that's something that even then, they cannot deny he is a genius in that aspect.
And his emphasis on making not only making a playground for creative people to feel safe in, as well as a place where comic book fans feel honored, where new fans can feel invited. Like, it's a weird amalgamation to balance, and I'm impressed every year that we have with him. So.
And like he's allowed comic book movies to be more deep than they were before the MCU. Like you go back to watch the X-Men films, or you watch the Spider-Man films, any of those older films. Like, yeah, they're good films, they're fun films, but there aren't discussions about deeper feelings with them, with most of them at least. I think the closest one that maybe you could say is has a bit of a deep conversation you could make with it is Hulk 2003, because of his father being a part of it.
Yes.
That's I think that's the only one that you could really say much with, and they
need to do something similar like that, and they've done some that definitely hit on the father-son relationship. But like you say, like the Spider-Man that we got this last year with No Way Home, I mean, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was always like, hey, I've got to save the villain. I've got to save him no matter what. There is a person inside there that doesn't deserve to die. And it would fail, and it would go wrong, and it would always be at their own hand that they would die. Well, they tackled that in the theme of No Way Home so well, and on such a concentrated level, that he's like, I'm not going to let any of you guys die. And that was crazy. And like the X-Men, I cannot wait to see what Kevin Feige and the MCU does with the themes around the X-Men, because the racism, the homophobia that they can deal with, there's tons of things. I
have no doubt that they will do that with it, because from every interview and stuff that Kevin Feige has done, he's very obviously passionate about representation. I'll go back, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, what he said after Eternals, when someone asked him about, are you proud of yourself for finally having a gay superhero? And he was like, well, this isn't even much. This is just the beginning. This is not something for us to pat ourselves on the back for. This is something we need to keep doing. And it's not just a business thing to him for and having representation. He is in it for the long haul. He wants to help these people. And that's
every kind of person, everybody who has love in their heart deserves to be represented and seen on screen, and be able to hear themselves or relate to some character for sure. And I am so glad that he said that, because it really shouldn't be about and that was the criticism in the past that Disney would get, be like, oh, the big meme joke is that Disney came out with their first gay character, and they've been saying that for years, and that's the joke, is that this character was gay coded, or that character or whatever. And it's like, okay, no, but let's put our foot on the gas and actually unapologetically say, this character is this way, they feel this way, and we're not editing it out for this country or that country. And that's a big step for them this last year with the
Eternals.
You just said it. Thank you.
And like also with Doctor Strange, because they were refusing to cut out the scenes for Ains from that of America Chavez talking about her two mothers.
Oh shit! I didn't know about that. The stuff I don't know about this news, Doctor Strange.
The film got banned in Saudi Arabia and Egypt, I think, because of it. But they are, at least currently, they're saying that they are not going to cut anything out, and I hope that they do. They keep that stance.
You know what? The movie theaters in Saudi Arabia and Egypt will regret that decision.
Oh yeah, well,
So,
they definitely will.
Too bad.
You know, honestly, it does piss me off though. But the people from those countries who have gone to the actress who plays America Chavez is Instagram and are insulting the hell out of her because of this, because they're so angry that the film's not going to be shown in their countries. The actress playing America Chavez is literally 15 and they're doing this shit. Like, that's so fucked up.
That's toxic. That's disgusting.
Like, oh my god.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Mhm.
That's horrific. And I hope she's okay.
Yeah. Definitely hope so too. Let's we could get a lighter note.
We can go into tangents all night, man. This is the finale episode of The Incredible Hulk. Of season one.
We'll definitely be going into probably some more tangents with this episode, but let's get this at least back on the rails a little bit. So as I always do, I have a trivia question for you. In Avengers Infinity War, right before Hulk crashes into the Sanctum, what type of sandwich does Wong ask Steven for?
Tuna fish on rye.
Okay,
is what I want to say.
I will give the answer later in the episode.
All right, I'm like 90% confident on that one. So,
all right. And as I always say, I highly recommend watching the episode before you listen to this podcast, because it may not make a lot of sense if you don't listen. All right, so the podcast I want to shout out this week is the Cult Film Companion Podcast. If you're a fan of cult films, you'll love this podcast. It's very entertaining and informative. I listened to their Evil Dead franchise episode, and I absolutely loved it. I've loved the franchise Eyes of Evil Dead for a long time, and in this episode, I actually learned something new about the Evil Dead franchise, which I find really cool. And also, tomorrow, from the day that I'm recording this, I'll actually be going on there to talk all things Howard the Duck, which that episode of their podcast may come out before this episode of my podcast is released, but I'm not sure. So definitely check it out, whether it comes before or after mine. But yeah, definitely check the Cult Film Companion Podcast out.
Wait, so what was the thing that you learned that was new about the Evil Dead series?
So Army of Darkness, I never knew that there was an alternate ending.
Oh my god.
Did you not know?
Does the Cult Film Companion Podcast have exclusive rights to this alternate ending?
No, it's on.
I will listen.
You can watch the alternate ending on YouTube, but yeah, it's I watch it. It's really cool. So instead of Ash going to present day, he gets teleported to the distant future because he accidentally drank too many drops. He accidentally poured too many drops of the of whatever was supposed to bring him back to the future.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do vaguely remember something. I might have seen that before, but my god,
I'd never known that that there was one on. So that I was really surprised when I heard that. I was like, I found it really cool that I learned something new from listening to their podcasts.
Well, with the Sam Raimi return to Marvel doing Multiverse of Madness, I am so stoked to watch a bit of the Evil Dead series, especially because of the way that I haven't watched any trailers or TV spots since the Super Bowl ad. The Super Bowl ad made it look a lot like Evil Dead, and I was like, "Oh my god, I am so excited for this!" But yeah, I will gladly learn and watch as much Evil Dead things as possible.
Yeah, I love the Evil Dead franchise because both from the style and also the humor of it. So I'm so excited for that. And like shows the Multiverse of Madness. Like this a sign that a lot of people were like, well, I've heard different people be like, "Oh, it's so cool! Sam Raimi is returning, and this is going to feel more like it's gonna feel like the Spider-Man films." No, that's not why he's returning at all.
Nope. I don't think it's gonna feel
He's
like them at all.
he's
And I'm
returning
excited.
for his classics.
Yeah. And I'm stoked because he did those movies, the Evil Dead movies, on such a small dime, on such a, it's the first thing he did at a college, during
Yeah.
college. I'm pretty sure he started the first one. But like, to go from that to returning to a studio like Marvel that he didn't have a great departure with, to returning in a time that he has so much technology and special effects at his beck and call, I am beyond excited.
And also, he's also, unlike with Sony, he's having basically complete creative control over this,
Yes.
which is gonna be fantastic. Like, one thing that I think is gonna be really cool, whether it happens or not, is Bruce Campbell having a cameo, which Bruce Campbell has been teasing that he did shoot something, but he doesn't know whether they will keep it in or not.
Wow,
because they are always changing things with Marvel films. But he says he hopes they keep it in because, like all of his cameos, they are very important scenes in the films.
Well, Bruce Campbell fans, and there are a ton of us, as well as Sam Raimi fans and Spider-Man fans of the original series, I think they will probably have a applause break for if he does show up. So I would love to be in the theater.
Oh yeah,
happens.
it's gonna be awesome. I've
got my tickets for next Thursday.
I have my tickets for next Thursday too. When I went to the Comic-Con in Atlanta last month, he was actually one of the guests at it, and I went to his panel. It was so cool to hear him talk. He is so hilarious, even though even when he has to improvise stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
it's very naturally funny. And it's weird. Before I even saw him in the Evil Dead movies and Spider-Man, I grew up watching a series with my family called Briscoe County Jr., and nobody talks about that fucking show anymore. But it is a like sci-fi comedy western series that lasted maybe 2 years. But he is so likable and funny in that role, as a cowboy hero trying to be like, debonair with the ladies, but also like a badass. And nobody like that's something that would be incredible to see come back since he did Ash versus the Evil Dead and things like that. So.
Oh yeah, he actually, I think, did recently while promoting the Evil Dead game, said that his role in that actually is one of his top 5 favorite roles
in the game.
No, the Briscoe County.
Oh, it sheriff. Really? Yeah. Oh, in Briscoe County. Oh my God, I've got to check that interview out. I'm surprised to hear him say that. It was such a small part of his career.
Most of the things that he said in his top 5 were actually TV roles that he's done.
Was the other one? Was the other one the Prince of Thieves in Xena and Hercules?
Yeah, that was one of them. That was one of them, and I think, and he also mentioned Sam Max from Burn Notice, which I absolutely love Burn Notice. Sadly, one of the things that he said when I was at the panel was that he said that no, he probably would not return to play character Sam Max just because it's too physically demanding at his age, but that's understandable. That's yeah, it was really cool to see him there. He actually at one moment during the con, he was walking through and he walked right in front of my mom's booth.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and he talked to the people at the booth next to us, which were some authors trying to sell their book. Yeah, he didn't buy their book, but he came over or talked to him. They asked if
Hey.
he likes reading, and he was like, "Yeah, I love reading."
Well, I bet you they did and could attribute a few of their sales to him coming over
Well,
the table. Then,
well, I don't know if I don't. No one else was over by the table at the time, so no one was seeing it. But
damn it!
yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, and also like he every day of the show, he wore a different really cool looking suit.
Of
Suit
course.
was
Oh, he's
like, and he
so
was,
dressed
and
up.
someone asked him about that. He was like, I want people to know that about my fashion. The rest of these people, they don't seem to care about how their appearance it's at these shows.
Yeah,
Oh
he
my
is.
god.
He's not a stranger to a shady comment now and then, in
Oh
good
yeah.
jest, of course, in
Oh
good
yeah.
good
He
fun.
like I remember. So what other person asked during the panel, how he feels about how Ash versus Evil Dead getting canceled too soon, and he was like, I don't think it was. He was like, I liked the ending they had,
Hmm.
and
Well, that yeah,
it annoyed the fan who asked him, but and I found it hilarious how he was he was just like,
he's
no,
he's gonna say what's on his mind. He's
oh yeah,
trusted for being an honest celebrity for sure.
yeah, oh, so the
We can do a Bruce Campbell podcast too.
oh
Apparently, that's what
god,
we're learning.
yeah. Oh man, he has so many great roles, so that would be probably fun.
Yeah, blast.
So this episode is titled "The Waterfront Story," and I like most episodes. This episode actually starts off with the Hulk and not David,
Mhm.
which is very interesting. The The first note that I wrote down was, yes, throw that that crate, Hulk. Scare those two workers.
Yeah, whatever you're doing, keep
Yes.
doing it. We like you
Yeah.
already. Yeah, it was weird. This opening scene. It seemed almost like there was clearly a higher budget. And I don't know what it was about the look of it or the composition of the shots, but like his contact lenses looked brighter and he was just like yelling at them already, and it just all looked very well put together. And I was like, that might be how I could see it feels different than another episode, because
Okay.
it seemed kind of, I don't know, if I wouldn't say expensive, like too expensive, but it was just clearly a little more care put into the look of
Yeah.
how everything was, as opposed to like some of the flakier episodes, like the trucker episode or something like there was some stuff where clearly not every shot looks fantastic. It's just
Mhm.
that opener was good. That was a damn good opener.
You mean like accidentally position your camera so that you can see his orange feet?
Yeah, things like that. The earthquake episode had some problems. I was looking for orange feet in this opener and I did not get it. It's very happy.
Oh my god. Um, the next thing I wrote down was um we see the next morning which is presumably the next morning. They don't actually confirm it's the next morning, but it's
We can assume.
but
Yeah.
we presume it's the next morning. David's sneaking around to hear Jack McGee interviewing a cop and some workers about seeing Hulk. The cop said, not only saw him, he saved my life.
Yeah.
See, these guys were trying to steal a shipment, and I ran to see what was going on. Jack asked, how many were there? And the cop responded, there were two. These two guys, they had me down when this other guy showed up to help me. A nice guy, dark hair. And then they start to beat him up, and all of a sudden, I don't know where he came from, but there was this bright, big green guy. And
Green.
Jack's ears. You were gonna say something?
No, just when Jack goes green. and then he writes something down.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I had next notes where that same thing. I wrote down Jack's ears perk up and he says excitedly, "Green."
Exactly what I was trying to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he says, "All right, I want to talk to everyone around here." And then the next scene, we are at a tavern, and we see what, at least at the beginning, I thought was this it was this old couple working, but it doesn't seem like from the rest of the episode that they are actually a couple. But one of them says, as a bunch of fairy tales, I tell you, green giant. The other rudely says to her, "First off, Sarah, no one asked you. And second of all, Sam Woods ain't the kind to make up fairy tales." And as
proof that we are in Texas now, right? Is that that's where it's happening?
Well, yeah, it is. The episode does take place in Texas.
I couldn't believe how much of her, like, by the very first scene being Hulk centric, I was like, that to me is an indication that they're trying to pack a lot into this episode, because he's already established here. He's keeping the docks clean, dang it. He's keeping them honest and trying to do his best to keep people safe, or at least punished. But then you've got like the Sarah and Vic characters, and Vic going on with his bad back, and David's already established at this bar, and it's like a nice family group that he already has. It's nice. It's a great start.
I can see that. And so as David walks in, Sarah says, "Sam Woods just about lives in a ride bottle." And then when she sees is David, she says, "Better late than never." You know, I've never heard of the saying "a ride bottle." Do you have any idea what that means?
Well, it lives in a bottle of rye, as opposed to like whiskey or gin or tequila. It's a type of brown liquor that he could be living in. And I do remember the character Sam being brought up a few other times, so it's a witness, right? It's that that one guy.
Yeah, that's, I think that's supposed to be the he may be the cop that Jack talked to. But I would okay if I'm guessing I heard it wrong. I probably would be able to figure out what it meant if I had heard it right. Like, I was thinking not rye, but ride.
Oh, you thought
I was like ride bottle. I was like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what a ride bottle means.
That means something incredibly different, especially up in Canada. It means no, I'm just kidding. It means nothing. It's I've never heard that before.
Oh man. So let's see the next thing I wrote down.
Can I say one thing before you do?
Sure.
I would say that this setup that David has going for him is introduced very quickly as how long he's been there, the relationships he has there. And it seems to me, and I've got a ranking later we'll talk about, this is one of maybe the best ones that he could just stay and be happy in, if he didn't have to always be on the run, in my opinion, to be the bartender for this Josie tavern. But obviously he doesn't want to do that, and that's not the format of the show.
Best ones, honestly, he could stay there, and it would. Do you think it's one of the better episodes of the show?
This episode is, and I'll we're jumping the shark a little bit, but this is my second favorite episode of the show. Oh
wow!
Which might shock you. It
definitely, because I have a very different opinion on the episode.
That's fair. Yeah. It didn't it swayed me by the end in some ways that I did not expect. I hated a lot of things about it, but I think the plot overall did sway me, and some of the acting, but not all of it. So we'll get into that later. But I just think that this family setup, this group of people, this stable home where he's kind of built a place as the bartender and has a good relationship with Josie. If it wasn't for some of Josie's things that have happened to her mostly, it would be a very nice place for him to continue living.
Okay.
But
yeah, I can see that. So the next thing I wrote down was so this another thing Sarah says is, I ought to wonder Sam didn't see a UFO with his green man, and then Vic, the guy she's arguing with, it makes a hand waving shooing gesture at her. And then David asks if Josie is here yet. And Sarah responds, no, but there ain't much time till we open, so you better get started. David tells him he needs to talk to her because he has to leave soon. Sarah's very surprised as he's only been there a few weeks. And David is very thankful for everything Josie has done for him. That Sarah cuts him off by saying, "Hey, let's see. What about out he's done? What you've done for her, David?"
Oh, Josie's done that for herself.
Yes, she did that all for herself. And then Sarah responds, You're the first person who has dragged her out of her shell since Frank died. I'm not saying you should make a big commitment, but this girl thinks a lot about you." David says, "I don't want to go," but she and then she cuts him off again, say, "Well, then, and we can stop talking about then and get busy." David tries to argue, but she just is telling him all the work he needs to do, and then Vic here is too lazy to do it all himself.
I'm not lazy; it's my bad back.
Yep. And then Sarah just walks away saying, "I know." And that wrote, I gotta say, other than David, I don't know who to root for in this scene, because it seems like, well, Vic was a jerk, but also seems like Sarah is a jerk to him.
Sarah has a very strong head on her shoulders. This actress I saw popped up in a lot of different things beforehand, but she's in a lot of episodes of Maude right around this time in history. But anyways, long story short, I sympathized with these characters because they were a funny crew for him to be with, and they don't take his moseying on to the next city at all. They're just like, fuck that, you're staying, and that's final. They don't let him leave, and neither does Josie when they talk. But the fact that like Vic is like going out and taking the garbage out and just watching him while he's smoking his cigar, and and Sarah could run the whole place by herself. Clearly she probably does. It reminds me of a lot of people that I've worked with and very quickly bonded to in a weird workplace. That clearly you see past their social foibles and you see them as good people.
Yeah. So we see as you're mentioning, David was emptying the trash. Well, Vic watches him, and Vic asks if he has police trouble, and David, obviously annoyed, doesn't respond to him, even though he shouldn't be annoyed at Vic because Vic did not tell him anything wrong. He's just
No, he's probably the next thing he would say is, "How can I help?" Not,
Yeah, I don't.
we don't want your type around here. Like, he's more likely to be on his
I
side,
don't.
right?
I don't understand why David refused to say anything here.
I think he just looked at Vic as nosy because he's sitting there not helping him
Uh,
with the trash, and he's like, I don't have that
uh,
relationship with you. I'm not telling you about my damn police trouble.
yeah, I should say that. So that we end now. So Vic then says, as there's the boss, as Josie pulls up, better get to work, as he pushes David out of the way to take the cart of trash cans.
Yeah, he starts finally working. Yeah.
And so we see Josie thanking Cliff, if the man who drove her, call it Cliff. Obviously, he responds, if there's anything you need, let me know. And Josie says, "Don't worry, I've seen a lot stronger. I've been a lot stronger lately." And Cliff looks over at David, saying, "It wouldn't have anything to do with your new bartender, would it?" Then Josie ignores the question and just says, "Well, you have a union election to win, and I have a saloon to open. So, and then he responds, yeah, but I have your endorsement?" And she doesn't respond, and then he says, "Josie, it's important." And then she says, "I gotta open. I'll see you in Frank's office in an hour, okay?" Then Josie walks back to not back. She walks over to David. She says, "I was worried about you last night. I put on my best for going to the movie. My best going to the movies dress on." And then she asks if something's wrong. And David responds, "No, Josie, nothing's wrong. As a matter of fact, I ran into an old friend of mine last night, and he's from New Orleans, and he offered me a job." And she says, "Well, you could have called." Oh, and he responds, "Well, I couldn't. You see, my friend and I had an incident at the docks." And she asks if he's gonna take the job in New Orleans. And he says, "I don't know." She starts walking away, but then turns back and asks, "Do you ever fish for breakfast?" And he laughs, saying, "No, I can't say that I have." Then she cuts him off, saying, "It's wonderful when it's freshly caught." And he starts responding, "Yeah, well, Josie." And then she cuts him off again, saying, "The ocean at dawn is best. It's all gray and misty like a Chinese painting." And he tries, I say, "Josie, look." But then she cuts him off again, saying, "How about tomorrow morning?" And then he responds simply with, "Okay."
Okay. Now, this, I have to cut in here. This is the beginning of my love-hate relationship with this character, Josie. She drives me up the freaking wall in the way that the actress portrays her. I don't necessarily think it's the actress's fault. Maybe it was a director decision, but she is so much like, the show has soap opera tendencies sometimes, but she is so often soap opera land for most of this character. And I understand she's grieving. I don't understand how long ago Frank died, but I understand she's grieving, but they portray that in such a way that is very cheesy and campy, and I'm okay with that in some instances, but
clingy.
Clingy, like, and the way that they describe it later with the whole like leaning on each other thing is, it's got some problems too. But the way they start out with her just like staring off into space and then being like, Have you ever had fish for breakfast? It's
It
like
was
I
like,
don't.
that was such a weird thing. Hey, just turn us around real quick. You ever have fish for breakfast?
He's like, I need to leave. I wanted to leave and I need to leave. But
I
I
would
mean,
probably
he's a
be
good
kind
guy.
of freaked out if someone just turned back to me just out of nowhere says this such a weird thing. Hey, you ever have fish for breakfast?
It's so, and it made me think, and it made me go, I haven't either, and I don't know why that would appeal to me. Fish for breakfast. Fish is a taste on your breath you really don't want that early in the day. But yeah, no, it was weird, and I would say that his reaction to it and his staying, his kind of being forced by everybody to stay.
Oh yeah.
Which is he was ready to do the thing we've seen him do 1,000 times. 1,000's an exaggeration, but still, he's left much more easily in every previous episode. And now he's being stuck there. And the reason he's staying is because he feels responsible for Josie's happiness. And I think that is a normal thing for a person who's supporting a widow or supporting someone who's lost somebody that drastically to feel. And it's something that they want to obviously help them through before doing anything like leaving, because if they are their only support group or support beam to lean on, and like I say, there's lots of leaning on discussion later. That's not the worst quality to have to want to stay. It's just, it's just all these things make Josie my maybe least favorite love interest. I don't know. Yeah, she's down there.
I definitely can agree with you on that. I noticed a lot in this episode. Nobody wants to let David speak at all.
It's like a podcast.
Everybody
with you and
cuts
me,
him off,
and I just keep cutting you off. And it's like you're David, and I'm Josie and Sarah and Vic.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I definitely talk a lot more on here than you do. Yeah, I feel like I'm not allowing you to talk of anything.
Well, you do a lot of the, not only your notes like you have, but you also have the very heavy burden of reciting the episode, which I give you full credit, man. That is tough. But let's move on.
So next thing we see is back in the tavern, and these two guys come in, and Sarah asked, "What can we do for you, Your Highness?" And the guy grabs her and asks, "Where's your lovely boss?" And she responds, "Quit mauling me, and I'll get her." And then as she quickly walks away, he goes to the bar and says, "Hey, Victor, how's it going?" And Victor responds, "Okay, Mr. Kelly, how's it going for you? You gonna get your old shop back?" And Mr. Kelly says, "This time tomorrow. This time next week, I'll be back in the saddle again, Vic." And then Josie comes out saying, "What can I do for you, Mr. Kelly?" And he responds, "Josie, you quit with that Mr. Kelly stuff. You've known me for 5 years? I've always been crazy about you and Frank, and you know that." Okay, and then he says, okay. So Frank beat me in the last selection. Big deal. Am I supposed to stop liking him or his wife? Look, I'm not like that, Josie. I didn't even get upset when Cliff McConnell left me to go work for Frank. And Frank was a good president for the union. Josie responds, "I'm not going to give you the endorsement." And Mr. Kelly responds, "Why not? What do you have against me anyway?" Sarah tells him, why don't you two bozos get out of here? Josie doesn't want to talk, and we don't want to listen. Mr. Kelly's goon starts saying, "You shut up, you!" And David cuts him off by spraying him with water. It's hilarious. And David then says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I slipped."
Whoops. This scene, by the way, it was so like, it was a lot of storytelling going on at once that made me try to stay ahead of the game and go, oh, political conspiracy. Oh, he killed Frank. It's like, oh wait, there's foul play here. Like, I didn't know what to accuse who of, like, of when, and I had my own suspicions. And then immediately afterwards, Josie blows the doors off and says she has her own suspicions, and says, whatever the phrasing, if you've got the phrasing right there.
Let's see. So let's see. Let's see. So the goon, who we now know is named Marty, starts trying to grab David, but Mr. Kelly tells him to cool it. And Mr. Kelly says, "I just want your endorsement, and that even though your not like me, may not like me, hey, I'm the best man for the job." And then Josie said, "If it hadn't been for the union, Frank would still be alive." And Mr. Kelly tries saying, "Frank's death was an accident, and I don't believe it.
He doesn't believe anything else, basically. Right? Like,
I wrote down, I don't believe it for a second.
Right. So that was Josie saying that, I think. He says Frank's death was an accident, and she goes, "I don't believe it for a second." And so Mr. Kelly looks like he's still putting on this persona of Frank's death was an accident, and he had nothing to do with it. But did you think that there was more to it than that, or did you think that Kelly was guilty?
I thought Kelly was possibly guilty, which actually ended up being a very good twist in the episode. What happened, and so that's one thing I can give the episode.
I'm going to convince you. I'm going to convince you, man.
Yeah. So
he was not the obvious baddie like he was in this first 5 minutes or first 10 minutes, which I loved later. But Kelly seemed entirely guilty, or at least like his joy of maybe getting his job back seemed at least inappropriate in a bar where the guy who died was the husband.
So so I've realized now what I actually meant when I wrote down the but I don't believe it for a second. That was I was like, one of the things where I myself was saying, I don't believe it for a second again. But then I wrote, and Josie doesn't believe him either, saying, why? Because you said it was us. And then Mr. Kelly goes back to his campaign spiel saying, I have no intention of losing to McConnell. And he walks away, but Marty lingers for a bit, causing Mr. Kelly to have to tell him, forget it, come on. I think it doesn't matter for the episode, but I think it was just funny. Random customer tells David, are you gonna stand there all day and let my beer get flat?
Just to bring him back to reality out of that drama soap opera that he's involved in already. Yeah. No, back to work. I'm a bartender now. Yeah.
I do mention before we get too far into this. So last time we were reviewing an episode, I mentioned that this episode may they have some things that don't age well politically, and what I meant from that, and this honestly did not end up being the case really for or what was going on in the episode, but the synopsis for the episode just says that as he helps this tavern owner against the pushy union men, which back in the 70s, unionizing was not considered a good thing versus nowadays it is considered a good thing. So I was thinking that it was really like they were trying to push this owner to allow them to unionize, but she wouldn't let it, and they were being painted as the bad guys for that. Why I was thinking was going to be what the episode is going to be. That's not what the episode is. So it's not aged poorly in that aspect. So I'm very happy about that. I just wanted to mention that before we go on, just in case anyone was wondering what I meant last episode when I said that.
That's fair, because the 1977, 1978 would not be all that far from the McCarthy era, where things like unions for workers was considered very much a commie and communist thing, and therefore you get black booked and black boxed and blacklisted. You get just kicked out of Hollywood for all sorts of things like that. So I'm glad that the late 70s were very much more accepting of these kind of ideas, because union dock workers,
I could have easily saw them trying to do something like that with it, just because
and they would have 20 years earlier.
I try to make that a political statement like that, just because maybe the people who run the show may not have liked people on the show unionizing.
Fair. Thank God not everything is that meta, but you're right, that is a very likely thing when you bring up something like that in a show.
I imagine a lot of Hollywood executives, probably at least back then and probably even still today, don't like the idea of unionizing, just like a lot of business owners did, because it wasn't it was leaned more on being good for the employees.
Very true.
Next thing we have is Josie tells David that Cliff wants to meet her at the local, which is Frank's old office. Would you like to go with me? And Sarah says, might as well. I'll go. You're useless around here today. and
after he did all that work for Vic.
I right after this, I wrote down, how has David been useless? Every time we've seen him, he's working. I don't know what that's about.
I like to boil that down to Sarah and Vic come from a very different era of work and how a social work family is supposed to run. And when they say that, when Sarah says that, I took it as someone kind of throwing shade in a playful way, that if she really looked into it, she'd realize, oh, he does a shit ton of work around here, and it's not just me. But she feels, and she just, her personality is that of a martyr, where she's the only one that does work around here, and it's only on her back.
And she's also, it doesn't seem like she's thankful at all about the fact that that David saved her from that guy. I tried to climb over the counter to get her after she called him out.
Well, at the same time, she has an arc in this episode, which I did not expect, which we get to see later when the Hulk comes out. And her character, Sarah's character, has a bit of a 180 when it comes to how we can view her as an audience member, because of how she treats Lou Ferrigno.
I don't know about that. We'll get to it when we get there. But
we will.
Like it sounds to me like you're trying to say like she was like really nice to him.
I think she was. I think in her weird way.
I think she was like, oh, big strong man. I can force him to work for us.
He moved one pool table. That's all.
I'm gonna lock him in this room, and then we'll force him to be part of our staff.
I didn't look at her as like trying to rein him into slavery or anything.
That's exactly how I thought.
I think she was more so going, oh, the cops are going to find you and you didn't do half this damage, so get in here and I'll protect you.
I kind of saw it in part of like by like the cops are coming. If they find you, I can't use you for work.
You're so yeah. I get how you could get there, but I didn't take it that way at all.
I think that the two of us really took this episode much differently,
and that's a first, and that's great.
That
makes for good podcast, John.
Yeah. So at this point is actually where I wrote down how I noticed that in this episode no one seems to want to let David talk much, and it also seems when David does have chances to speak, he chooses to make it short or the sentences, which or at least up to this point there seems to be there was some more longer sentences from him later, but up until this point most of his sentences were very short things, which just kind of felt a little weird versus how he's always acted in the previous episodes.
Fair. No, I didn't even. I would want to watch the whole episode over again to look into that, because I think you're right. Now I want to make like a count of how many people just cut him off.
Yeah. So the next thing I wrote was David that says, "Well, we're off. Sarah, tomorrow I'll work twice as hard." We then and cut to this scene of them walking together to her father's office, and the first thing I wrote, because it's the first thing we saw in the episode, was cannon, and then because there was a cannon on the path that I wrote, even though this did not end up being the case, I wish it was the case. I wrote that I hope we get to see a Hulk firing it. That would be amazing. Hulk firing a cannon.
Hulk firing a cannon would be like, because I would look at the Hulk as the receiver of a cannonball in the gut or something and be like, oh, that makes sense. He could join a circus.
That would be great. Would be a cannon that was big enough to fire the Hulk.
At 58, what's it? The something mile an hour fastball. What the hell is it that he? Oh no, never mind. That's Colossus throwing the Wolverine. And he calls it like 50-mile-an-hour fastball or whatever. If the Hulk threw the Wolverine, that's what I want to see.
I want to see more of characters being thrown. Like it's such a great fighting move of working together where one character throws the other into another.
Well, they have an amazing team that doesn't get a whole lot of recognition. I highly doubt we'll ever see them in the MCU, but the Canadian team Alpha Flight has a little French Canadian character named Puck that has a indestructible force field around him. He is a little person, and he gets usually hurled by another Canadian character called Sasquatch, who's very large and brown, and he whips Puck, and Puck usually takes out quite a few villains.
That reminds me of how so I used to play a D&D and Pathfinder, and like I always played this character called Smorgan Creeman, who I based it off of the name Morgan Freeman, and awesome. and he was a half orc paladin, and my brother Michael would always play characters who were are really short and very small, just very small in general, but they're packed full of rage. So I would any chance I got in battle, I would throw him. And sometimes you'd get annoyed, but sometimes you get into it. You just think it's really fun. Like man, there was this one time which was absolutely hilarious. So we were fighting this thing that was naked, and I threw him into the crotch, and he cut off its penis.
Oh, I hope to do that in D&D someday. I have my first ever D&D game coming up in about a week for a friend's birthday, where I will be a half-elf bard with a very dark past that I got to write myself. So I'm excited to play.
I also really liked being able to since Michael's character was so small, he would a lot of times try to jump up on top of me. So I would put him in my bag, on my back, and I would make sure that my bag is low enough that it can he would have to smell my farts. Oh my god.
And people say D&D is too serious.
Oh god, yeah. One last thing about my D&D character. So I created a custom weapon, which was because I was a paladin. I had them. I combined a flail and a sensor. So I would be hitting. I would hit people with a spiky sensor, so they get fire damage and the piercing bleeding damage. So it was really cool.
Oh my god. Maybe you can give me advice on the weapon that my character should have, because I'm
not good at. I never had was part of really the setting up process. I'm not very smart in all those things, so I wouldn't not suggest trying to get advice from me.
Fair enough. The guy running it, my friend's husband is the dungeon master, and he's told me that I can make up a weapon of my choosing, but it'll essentially be a mandolin with a dagger hidden in the neck of the instrument.
Nice.
So I want that because I went to the College of Whispers and know how to poison and control some enemies with this dagger, but I really don't know much more about it. So I'm looking for any advice I can get. But
I thought of one last thing that I think was really funny about my character. So I had a +10 in intimidation and a +8 in diplomacy. So so whenever I rolled for those, I got a 8 or 10 added to it. So it was funny. So whenever whenever there would be an argument between me and someone else in the group about what we're going to do, I would just be like, roll to intimidate. And then they have to do what I say. And also, like, if a place we were going to, they didn't want me to come in, and because I'm an orc, I would intimidate them into letting me come in, and I always thought that was really fun to be able to do the and also just diplomacy was I made so I could try to go about things in a peaceful manner, which was definitely good as a paladin. But when need be, I can always intimidate you if you don't want to follow my peaceful manner.
It sounds like you need to be playing more Dungeons and Dragons. You sound very happy when you talk about it.
I honestly wouldn't mind probably getting back into it, but the problem is the group of friends who I was playing it with, I don't want to be around those people anymore. They they don't exactly follow the same ideals that I would that I want in my life. I could the very kind of toxic people. So yeah,
Fair.
but yeah,
You need to assemble a new
I'd want to
party.
probably find a new party, but I want but one thing that that I would definitely be trying to do would be a bringing back Morgan Freeman because I love that character.
What's his
Everyone
name? Smorgan Creeman?
yes, it's based on Morgan Freeman.
I love it. I love it. And he's
yeah,
I love that more.
Yeah, I definitely would want him back. Like, most people every new campaign they do a new character, but every campaign I've done, I've always done the same character just because I like this guy so much. So yeah,
fair. We'll see if my character lives through this one shot that we're gonna do for my friend's birthday, and then I'll decide whether or not I like him.
Yeah, since I didn't want to hang around those friends anymore, I worked towards ending off my on my character's story within that campaign by he was retiring with this Talia, this tavern owner that my character fell in love with. Then she fell in love with him too. So that was a nice ending for my character until I bring him back.
Yeah.
Was able to find love.
All it takes is an army of raiders to come and kill your wife and burn down the tavern, and then you're good to go again.
Yeah.
Not unlike this episode of The Incredible Hulk.
Oh God.
It didn't burn down yet, but Frank is dead.
Yeah. So the next thing I wrote down was David tells Josie that he heard some things at the docks that lead him to believe that her husband's death was not an accident. I don't know why, for some reason I wrote down here her father's death. Okay, but so she tells him that the police did a full investigation and Cliff that even hired a private investigator, but nothing came of it. David tells her that David says but that means both you and Cliff think somebody had a motive. And Josie responds, well, Frank mentioned that he was investigating dock thefts. And David asked if there's any records. Josie says that they looked through everything, and it always came back empty. I lost my place.
Empty-handed.
Yeah. It always came to the same thought. Frank's dead, so what does it matter? Mm-hmm. And then this
is where I have a note.
Okay.
This moment where Josie, this is number 2 strike against Josie. She stares off into the distance out the window. She says, I just can't. I don't want to be involved. Frank's dead, so what does it matter? This kind of soap opera-ish crap was so jarring for me for enjoying her character. I did not enjoy most. Yeah, her name is Sheila Larkin, the actress. Nothing against her. I mean, she's been in many things since. It's just her portrayal of this character in the moment was a little too camp, and maybe it was just the way it was written for her. And they said, "Hey, just act this way out the window and act that way out the window." It was always her staring off into the distance and having some lag in her own character's progression. And I know that's how grief works, but it's so campy here, and it's hard to take seriously.
Yeah.
In a show that we shouldn't even be taking that seriously. It's just it just bugged me. Bugged the hell out of me.
Definitely see that. So the next thing I wrote down is at the local 696 Union Station, we see Jack McGee, and there's immediate suspense as he almost catches David again, and but David leans over to fix his shoes so that he can't be seen. Josie turns around on which helps him hide, and she asks what's wrong, and he covers by saying his sock slipped under the boot
It's the
or
worst.
slipped down the boot.
It's the worst
So
feeling.
yeah.
I hate that feeling.
Oh
You
yeah.
get the sock underneath your heel, especially in a winter
It's
boot.
so painful.
Ugh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what am I squishing on? It's not good.
Mm.
The music that came in when Jack McGee, and it happens again later, the music that came in was very different than the show, to my knowledge, to my memory, that is played in the past. And they use a lot of the same themes over and over and over again. This one I feel like was a little different. Maybe it was because it's the finale. I don't know.
Maybe they're trying to introduce a Jack McGee theme for whenever he shows up.
Maybe.
Yeah. So the next thing I wrote down was that as they're about to enter the building, and 3 masked men and come running out, seemingly robbing the place, but we didn't see them holding anything. And they run inside to find the room trashed and Cliff, if knocked out on the floor. And when he comes to, David checks him out and says he needs to have a doctor look at it. And Cliff believes this is Kelly's, or he says he believes this is Kelly's way of telling him to drop out of the election. David says, as Kelly really seems to get around a lot, Josie he tells Cliff that if he was at the tavern earlier trying to get her endorsement. And Cliff says, well, you got to hand it to him. He's persistent, even though he knows you're endorsing me. And as Josie doesn't respond, he pleads, saying, you are going to give me your endorsement, aren't you? It's more important than ever that I need your endorsement. And David stops him, saying, I think you made your point, and we need to get you to a doctor ASAP.
The ultimate mediator, David.
Yep. And then the scene transitions to the next day. David is at the beach fishing, and David goes over to Josie saying, are you sure the fish bite this early? And she responds, I thought you said you were an angler. And I'm not quite sure what an angler is.
Me neither.
I think it's just a fishing term. And David responds, he's a wrangler. And she says, a cop out, pure and simple. And he responds, more of a case of mistaken semantics.
Some more flirting from David with a love interest that it can go one of two ways, and I feel like it highly depends on the character he's flirting with. But I would say Bill Bixby is fantastic at the charm side that David portrays, but I don't love the version that he's getting back from Josie. And I don't know if it's the writing or the actor or the direction, but when she just kind of stares off into space and seems like she's reading off a cue card, it just seems a little too campy and corny and melodramatic for someone who's going through some pain like that. So it's tough to believe, but maybe it's my own experience with the whole type of grief that she's grieving, and to take it serious in this kind of what's the word I'm looking for, atmosphere or show tone that this show has is a little hard to figure out what it's supposed to sound like, but it just doesn't sound believable to me. It's just very over the top.
So the next thing I wrote down was She says, it's been a long time since I've been fishing. And she hesitated before she said fishing. And that made me wonder if she was going to say something else when she ended up saying fishing, which I'm wondering what she was going to say. But she stopped herself because I can't think of anything that would make sense in the scene.
The safest thing I can imagine is dating.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
She feels she's on a date, but it doesn't feel like the right time for her, so it's awkward.
Yeah, maybe that could be it. So the next thing that I wrote down is that she then says, "I forgot how chilly it can be." And David asked if her and Frank came here a lot. She nods her head, saying, "Feels like a million years ago." And then as if we were here together yesterday. And David says, "Worst kind of deja vu." Oh, and David tells her it gets better, and it's something you can handle on your own. And then she says, "But I've been leaning a little too hard, eh?" And then stares at David and says, "How about a couple more minutes?" And she starts crying into David. But then and she notices they got a bite, and then and David shouts, "Fish, fish, fish!" And I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
David kisses the fish. Is
oh, you're supposed to cook that, huh?
Yeah, that says I guess you're supposed to cook it first. And then as they pack their stuff back into a truck, Mr. Kelly drives up next to them. He says he's planning to make some changes when I'm elected. A fund for widows of elected officers. And Josie calls him out on the rotten way of making a blatant bribe. And he says, "Now, damn it, Josie. This is important to every man at 696. It's important to me." And she tells him what happened to Cliff. And at this moment, so he says, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she responds, "Did you really think you could scare him out of the race?" And he says, "Now, wait a minute. I've been very civil about all this. I steered clear of all the as I don't and I wrote down, I have no idea what old as means.
I think he said old ways. To my knowledge, he was referencing the fact that he has steered clear of his old ways, which he used to maybe be a criminal and put his thumb down on people or send a little bit of muscle after them. But
that makes sense.
I think he genuinely, he seems genuinely confused, and we find out later that of course he was. Who the hell roughed up
at that
Cliff?
moment? I was like, I think he may not be involved.
And it made me think back to the scene where he's first introduced, and it was like, okay, did it seem a little too easy that he would just be another corrupt white man in power? Like that we've had that character several times this season. It's just okay, definitely. Maybe that's not what's going on here. That was nice.
Yeah,
nice refreshing moment.
Yeah, it is definitely nice. So the next thing I wrote down was Josie just responds, "Mr. Kelly," and then David says, "Goodbye, Mr. Kelly," and Kelly leaves. And I wrote down, I believe him, not knowing what happened to Cliff, and we obviously know now that that he was telling the truth. That he about that, and I feel very happy with myself that I predicted exactly what happened. I wrote down I wonder if Cliff set that up himself to get Josie to side with him.
Mm-hmm.
And what if Mr. Kelly didn't kill Frank, but Cliff did? Which it wasn't technically Cliff who did it. It was Marty, but
wasn't just Cliff.
Yeah, he was definitely involved. So then at the docks, we hear you hear Marty say, "Come on, you turkeys! We only got half an hour." And this is the second time I've heard turkey used in the show as an insult. I guess that was a popular insult in the 70s.
Must have been.
I think it was I think the other time was the mechanic in the Vegas episode was calling the car a turkey, if I remember right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good memory. No, I was laughing at the fact that as Kelly was saying, he was genuinely confused about who roughed up Cliff. It's like the only obvious answer is that it's his overambitious henchman Marty, who got sprayed in the face by David earlier. Like, why was that so significant if not Marty being the Marty Hammond being the guy at fault here? I did not, however, predict that it would be Cliff right then. So kudos to you on getting that before I did. Holy crap. I didn't think thought,
anything of Marty. I just thought he was just a normal goon at first. At least I thought he was the first part. I just thought he was that as a henchman who was a little too overprotective of his boss.
I found him to be too tall and his hair to be too light for him to be just the typical henchman. I don't know. He just seemed very different from the henchmen we've seen in the past. And then for them to go
look like Sacha Baron Cohen.
He didn't look like Sacha Baron Cohen for once. They have a henchman who doesn't. He looks like the opposite almost somehow, even though they're both very tall.
We haven't mentioned that in a while.
It has been a while. Thankfully, it was only in the first 3 episodes we saw some Sacha Barons. But no, it's funny that they have a scene where they're catching a fish to immediately a scene where Marty Hammond is acting fishy. And that's the very next part.
Yeah. So, next thing I wrote down with this here this guy running up saying, Mr. Hamlet, what about my money? And Marty responds, later. We gotta get this stuff out of here before anyone realizes it's gone. You'll be paid when we finish loading. And the guy responds, listen here, there's no customs stamps on these. I'm the one taking all the risk, and you are saying wait. And Marty says, as you want out, fine. I got 5 people waiting to get to take your place. So now what's it gonna be? The other guy doesn't respond, just walks away. And he gets a call. I was guessing from Mr. Kelly, but I don't think so based on the ending of this episode. Marty reassures him that everything is going fine. He asked how his meeting with Josie went. And
he says, I'll handle it. Yeah. She'll come around. And I think now, thinking about the fact that Josie saw both Cliff and Kelly in the last 24 hours, that was definitely a call from Cliff. And him saying to Cliff, I'll handle it now.
At that moment, even though I thought that Cliff had was involved, I still thought that that Marty, Kelly would not really involved in all the illegal stuff, but that Marty, he's still working for Kelly Ellie, and that he was getting a call based on the fact that that Kelly didn't convince her when he showed up to her by the beach.
Yeah.
Uh,
Very
uh,
good point.
Because like whether he's working he's working on the illegal stuff or not, they still are supposedly working together from the for the union side, and but they don't interact with each other again in the episode, if I
True.
remember right, which I found out a little weird that we don't see Mr. Kelly again till the way end of the episode.
Oh yeah, I mean at this point, once his confusion over who roughed up Cliff, it's like, oh, he's expunged. He's completely off the
Like,
list
I would have
possible villains.
I would have guessed us at least they would have tried to like have like Mr. Kelly go to Marty and be like, "Did you do something to Cliff?" If being mad
Well, if he did that, he'd die, and then the dock workers union wouldn't have any president.
Yeah. Oh. But
I'm explaining away things.
But like I feel like that would make sense that so he would try to do something like that. Like it's not terrible they did, but it's but I found it a little weird that he like this character seemed to be really important to the story, but then he just disappeared for the most of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the next thing that I wrote down was so let's see.
Can I tell you what I wrote down?
What? Oh, okay.
The thing I wrote down for this transition was Hammond goes from acting fishy to orchestrating a bar fight at Josie's with exactly a fishy. Saying he puts that fish in that pitcher and blames David.
The next thing I wrote down is one last thing in the docs, which it did not end up actually amounting to anything. But I thought that while he was on the phone we were seeing the other guy sneak over to a truck, and I was guessing he was stealing it, but we never continued from there. Did you notice it seeming like he was stealing it, or did you just think he was going back to work?
I think he was going back to work. You talking about the little guy that was talking to Hammond?
Yeah,
the
little guy was talking. Like it looked like he was. It looked a little bit like he was sneaking around to the front of a truck. But
there was definitely some cut scenes they definitely didn't need to keep in that led to that kind of confusion. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So the next thing that is where, as you said, the scene transitions to the tavern. We see people playing pool, and then we hear what I thought sounded like David, but it ended up not being him. Reading a headline from the National Register: "Beautiful explorers, tale of terror, Hulk spotted in Texas." And then, and though we don't actually hear it read out, we see on the page it's that the other headlines are "High-speed chase ends in death," and "Woman naturalist lives with headhunters." And then one of the other people at the table points out an article with Sam, we're guessing the police officer from the beginning, of which they said that apparently Jack misspelled the name of, which I thought was kind of funny. We see Sarah asks David for refills, and David responds, "I saw you coming. Quiet night." And Sarah responds, "No complaints here." And then someone accidentally ran into Sarah, causing a distraction so that
Yeah.
Marty can put something in the drink of one of the people at the table. And the guy asks, "What the hell is this?" And one of his friends starts laughing, saying, "That looks like a dead fish to me." And Marty tells him, "The bartender must really have a sense of humor. He got to you,"
Yeah.
while laughing. And the guy gets very mad about this and decides to start a bar fight. And
Yep. Good old fashioned bar fight.
yep.
Smashing the pitcher, smashing things against other people's heads. My God, that place was full of a lot of candy glass.
Yeah. So the next I wrote down. So, David comes running out to try and break it up, but David gets punched and he falls into Marty, who holds him to be punched again.
Yeah.
And then Marty and the other guy, they then throw him and behind some saloon doors as he turns into the Hulk. And Sarah joins the bar fight, throwing glasses at the guys that threw David.
I have something to say about this part. So what it's probably my favorite part, one of my favorite parts of the episode, because Sarah, who's been screaming for Hammond to stop it, just starts throwing bottles and glasses on the floor, taking part in the destruction of the place. All hell breaks loose. Everyone is now in a bar fighting kind of bar fight, and Sarah has lost her damn mind.
Yeah.
I don't know why she's breaking more glasses.
I was wondering this exact same thing. I was like, what the hell? Why you are an employee here? Why are you being a part of the bar fight?
I don't know why she
thinks
thinks
worse.
She's trying to get their attention by breaking more glass. I don't know what the hell she's doing, but it's really funny.
I imagine if Josie found out about that the next day, Josie probably would have fired her on the spot. Because she made things worse for them.
Undoubtedly. A part of me just wanted for a split second to cut the camera to cut outside where Vic is smoking a cigar by the dumpster and listening to the fight and not giving a rat's ass, because he's got a bad back. He can't be expected to do anything about it. Yeah. That's the one thing that this scene was missing, in my opinion.
Sarah took that as an excuse from him when he told her tells her every time about the bad back. But honestly, she really is kind of rude to him about the fact he has a bad back. Like, for really, sure.
For sure,
you should be I like to have some sympathy for the guy.
It's true,
but Sarah obviously doesn't.
Sarah has her flaws, and the biggest thing is resentment of everyone else because she feels she does the most work. And whether she does or not, she should still be a little bit more kind to the other people that work around.
Also, I'm not from the episode, I'm not sure whether she was supposedly their boss or if she was just a co-employee, because like she acted as if she was above all of them, and she could tell them what to do, which if she was just another employee, I wouldn't think she would be able to do that.
I think she's probably been left, like word of mouth, she's probably been left in charge enough times that it's given her a sense of entitlement to keep doing that. And maybe she's the only one who's trusted to actually bark orders at anyone else. And that's
I just thought that was interesting. It wasn't really a bad thing. I just thought it was interesting that she was.
I agree. She's definitely not got the title of anything. It's just that she's the one that Josie, I think, has had to probably lean on since Frank's death. I think is what's happening.
So the next thing that we see is I wrote that I like how in the midst of all of this chaos, there's just this one guy who just keeps trying to drink his beer, and does not participate in the fight whatsoever. He just keeps moving his spear and moving up and down, trying to get out of the way. Everyone just keep drinking his beer, which I thought was hilarious.
That's amazing. I didn't catch that at all. That sounds like some freaking Blazing Saddles Shanghai Noon kind of shenanigans. That's fantastic. I wish I'd seen that.
And the next though this is jumping ahead a little bit, but the next morning they had found one glass that wasn't broken. At least in my head canon, I think that was his glass. Because he was particularly trying to keep his glass safe so he could keep drinking it.
And he just gingerly put it down after everything had been said and done and just left peacefully.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like that surprised if didn't pay.
Of course not. Nobody paid that night. Everybody ran off because there was a green man.
Yeah. So everyone then hears the Hulk's growl, and then they just all immediately stop fighting and be like, what?
Which is what I was expecting, because once everybody was in full tilt bar fight moment, nobody was not involved in that bar fight, except for maybe the guy with the unbroken glass. Yeah. But like, you really do expect, because the beginning of him being thrown back there, you start hearing the Hulk transformation sound, right? And so you're wondering, when is he going to come out and just distract everyone from what they're doing and make them either run or pee themselves? I don't know.
So there was a part of me that thought that it might be where they like he would come out. Nobody noticed he comes out as they keep fighting because they're just so focused on fighting, and Hulk just like a part of me was thinking this might happen. Like Hulk comes out, he's just really confused. He's like, wait, you guys are supposed to be afraid of me. Why are you guys just fighting each other? What the hell is going on?
That would be a Hulk moment from today, where we get to make fun of those kind of moments that should happen but then don't, and that's what's surprising about them. Absolutely, that would happen today.
Because I feel like when people are in a bar fight, they're so focused on a bar fight that they are not going to be able to tell anything else is going on.
Very true.
Yeah,
I haven't been in one personally, but I have not either. Yeah, I feel like just in a bar that's busy enough with no fight, you wouldn't notice a big green man pop in.
I've only ever seen bar fights in movies, but just based on what I've seen in movies, it seems like they're always very focused on the fighting, and they are not able to tell anything else is going on around them. Yeah. So the next thing we see is that Hulk breaks the door down, comes out of the closet, and
whoa, what?
Yeah, I particularly wrote that down that way just because I knew it would get you.
I don't remember this being listed in the episode. This should not be called the waterfront story. Yep. My goodness.
Waterfront story.
No, this should be called the Yas Queen story. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh my God, he comes out of the closet.
It's true. He does come out of a closet.
He does.
And I particularly wrote it down, Jelly, just because I knew that it would get you.
You know me too well.
And then he just simply walks through the bar counter.
He does.
So breaking it. It was hilarious. And then he throws a chair at a mirror for no reason.
And you do notice that mirror made the sound of a small glass breaking. Like the sound editing on that was like chair, throne, mirror. Like it was so unnatural. I was like, what's going on here? But it just threw me off for like a split second.
Yeah. That was great. And then so the next thing was the guys say there he is, just like Sam said, and then they all start they all run out of there and Hulk then and proceeds to throw a table now at another mirror, and I think Hulk must hate mirrors. Airs after this.
Probably.
He threw items at multiple mirrors. There must be something to that.
I think you're very likely onto something, if not for just the general destruction. Maybe it was like a subconscious thing that maybe even the stunt team was aware of, where they're just like, okay, we're gonna have the Hulk hate his own reflection. Let's have him smash all the mirrors.
But I thought it was hilarious seeing it.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't know what it is. Maybe it scares him.
Yeah,
who knows?
So the next, which that kind of makes sense, since I don't, and he probably has never seen a mirror before, so he's probably never seen what he looks like.
Very possible.
Yeah. So he keeps growling till most everyone leaves, but Sarah stays, just screaming, aiming.
Stop! My new ringtone. Sarah screaming stop over and over again. Hilarious.
Imagine you're driving and you just start hearing stop.
I'd be like, do you mean slow down? I don't suddenly stop for any sound. Just the billiard ball trick. The billiard ball thing was fantastic. I don't think we'd seen something like that before.
Oh yeah.
I really loved that. What took me out of this moment was the fact that there was some freaking banjo and harmonica music, and I don't know if that's like regionally something attached to Texas, and that's why. But I felt like they had done a lot of episodes with that kind of atmosphere, and there's this moment where he locks eyes with Hammond. Marty Hammond stares at him, and he's like the last guy in the room, and Lou Ferrigno is like, rah, and he flexes his pec muscle, and there's this like harmonica that comes in out of nowhere, and it's like what the hell was that 5 seconds we just saw? Why did it was just it just didn't fit the scene. And there's music that I praise in this episode, especially surrounding the end and Jack McGee, but there's parts in this episode that don't make any freaking sense in my opinion. But it's the music. It's nitpicking. I don't know.
That's all right. I think I can't remember if it was this episode or if it was another episode. I was writing down near the same time. That was something where really nitpicking I wrote down too. So I can definitely understand that. So the last few people that are fighting, Hawk just runs into and pushes them over, and then they start trying to hit him with stuff that all just breaks, and then they start are throwing pool balls at him, and he waves out of the way of the first one, but then catches the second one and crushes it just to scare them. And then as they try to run away, he slides the pool table into them. And I wrote, that's gotta hurt, but I love seeing it.
Yep. 100%.
Oh man. So and then Hulk turns around and looks at himself in the mirror, and then and Sarah implores him to leave because the cops will blame him for what happened if they see him. Hulk looks at her very confused, and she says, "You remind me of my second husband, the strong, silent type, only talked when he had something to say, except he wasn't usually green."
I don't know what that meant. That last line made me like, what?
Yeah,
what do you mean it wasn't usually green?
Yeah,
hilarious.
I literally also wrote down out that implies her second husband sometimes was green, which is very interesting.
Yeah, who do we know him? Who is this man? Is he in a comic book somewhere we don't know about? My favorite was when she yelled, "Oh, fish guts were blocked!" Trying to get into the back room. Like this leads me to believe that the writers of this episode have a tenuous grasp on docks and dock worker culture, because there is a fish reference or a fish line every 5 minutes in this episode. It is insane how many fishes, and it's just fishing around, and there's a fish prank, and there's fishing, and then she says fish guts like it's everyone's expression. What the hell are you talking about, Sarah? No one says, oh, fish guts were blocked. That's weird.
Yeah, that's definitely weird. Oh my god. When you said that, it reminded me about all of the duck puns in Howard the Duck.
That's what that's what I'm talking about. It's all they
No,
go, one episode fish.
I honestly
fish
probably enjoyed it a lot more in Howard the duck puns than the all the fish puns in this, because I think
of course
they did them a lot more well done in Howard the Duck.
I mean, you do a movie about a character who's a duck, you're gonna expect some duck puns. You go to a dock workers union episode, you don't have to make every line about fish.
Yeah,
they don't even. That's not even what they're shipping. They're not shipping fish.
Yeah, no. Also, like the name of this episode is the Waterfront Story.
Yeah.
This episode doesn't have much to do with the water at all,
except for a very convenient place to throw innocent bystanders when they try to attack the Hulk later. It's just like, hey, get away from me. Oh, you're fine? Okay, cool. You know how to swim? Here's a life jacket.
This is what I was thinking about the other day. So with films having puns in them, I think I think either you don't do it, or you do it to an absolutely extreme amount out. Don't half-ass it. I think if you're going to find your audience who's going to enjoy it if you do an extreme amount, but if you just do it a little bit, you do something like what you see in this episode. It's not terribly enjoyable in comparison. I think. Well, it's not bad, but it's like not something that anyone's going into the episode being like, I want lots of fish puns. Versus versus if you are a fan of Howard the Duck, there's not a lot of us, but you are gonna want those duck puns with that. You're going to want them to go to the absolutely extremes with them, because you want them to embrace that ridiculousness.
Absolutely. 100%.
But yes. And if versus like if they just half-assed it, it would be I don't think that it would be quite as enjoyable watching something if there's just a lot of half-assed, like pretty crap puns in something.
I agree. Like, if you're going to do the minimal version of puns, I feel like it is a character choice as opposed to an entire movie's tone. So if you have a character that's very pun happy or punny or whatever, sure, make them have all the puns, but don't have everybody speaking the same pun language, because that's not how life works. There's not, you ask any group of 10 people, one person is punny, not all 10.
Yeah.
If very rarely do even 4 other people enjoy it. So, it's rare. But I see what you mean. Yeah.
I
think you're on something.
The next thing I wrote down. She says, "You look about as confused as I am," and then I guess we must have watched 2 different versions of this episode somehow, because what I heard her say was not the same of and she in my version. I did not hear her say fish guts. I heard her say rats. Rats were blocked as she sees the pool table, which is interesting.
That to me means that the original version was fish guts, and someone said, that's stupid, just say rats, and then they re-edited it. But I'd be very surprised if it was the other way around. That's really, because fish guts is the weirdest expression I've ever heard.
Yeah. So the next thing that I have is that Hulk obviously understands her somewhat as he just pulls the pool table out of the way so that they can leave. And she then says, as that's not bad. And you might be handy to have around. And then she yells for David, and she takes Hulk to a room to hide him. She says, tells him, "I'll be right back, and please do not try not to break anything. And you left a big enough mess out there." And then she runs out, locking him in. The cops ask what happened, and Sarah says, "I'm not sure. It's like this Japanese movie I once saw." And
like once she said that to the cop, I looked at him. I just saw the actor playing the cop go like, "Is there anyone else I could talk to?" He just seemed really lost with her. That's her description.
I like. So she ended up actually telling him basically everything that happened, but like at that moment when she said that, I was thinking that was all she was going to say, and I wrote down, why lie? Here, there's a very simple explanation. She could just say there was a massive bar fight. That's all she has to tell them.
Yeah.
But then she tells them everything from the fish to the Hulk. And
I think from the point, like, I think she looked at it as like that many witnesses who all saw the Green Man. The best she could do is say that he went somewhere else or ran somewhere else because they were all probably going to go against her story.
The thing is, what she could simply say, if they all try to say that there's the Hulk there, she can say, those people were all drunk. Why are you believing them?
Very true. Good point.
They were very drunk. You have to be very drunk if you're getting in a bar fight.
my favorite thing about the whole scene is that when she reveals that she still thinks that David and Hulk are two separate people, and she goes, "Oh, our bartender should be around here somewhere." And like, I shouldn't be surprised at this point after 12 episodes of this, but like maybe vests were more popular in those times, but he's dressed exactly like her bartender from 10 minutes ago. So in my opinion, the Hulk's just lucky to be friends with such stupid people. And that's really what it comes down to. It's like, oh,
stupid people in every single episode.
This person's an idiot. Okay, thank God the Hulk's fine. My identity is safe.
Like there's been I think there's and as well even worse things where it's like things where David Banner is stuck in an area, but then the Hulk comes out, there's no David Banner. I wonder what that means.
Close quarters. Well, how could you possibly think it was anyone else? And like the whole and the vest thing that he's wearing a vest as this bartender just makes me think of Superbad, where they think McLovin looks like Aladdin or Geppetto, and I just love those like vest jokes or vest insults that they hurl at him. It's very much what I was looking at when I saw Hulk in a brown vest and a shredded white shirt. It's like, that's amazing. It reminds me of what this conversation reminds me of, like the Guilt, Models, and Murders episode where he was stuck in this car, a car that was about to be crushed, and no one seemed to think, it must be one of the two people who was in the car. Also, the other guy who was in the car, he just ran away. He doesn't think anything of the fact that he now knows who the Hulk is. Very true. Very true. There's a ton of people who could be adding to Jack McGee's story. And if it was a TV series today, Jack would have had a whole episode dedicated to interviewing those people.
Yeah.
There'd be a weird Jack McGee episode where he just talked to everybody.
Which would actually be pretty interesting, having an entire episode from Jack's perspective.
Yes,
Like it
that
would
is
feel
something they
very
would
different, but different from the rest of the show. But sadly, I can't see them probably doing that.
I mean,
I
hope that the She-Hulk show has a Jack-like character that is trying to figure things out, but also like She-Hulk is supposed to kind of be out there with her identity, so it's tough to know what they're gonna do. But I know they're gonna pay homage.
Oh yeah, there's definitely gonna be homages. Like there's already in the first little snippet trailer that they released last year, they had a like almost shot for shot thing that was supposed to look like the pilot episode of this, of a scene in featuring David and him.
I'm angry.
And they even like shot it in this like this old timey look for the it. I'm so excited for that. And, you mentioned like a Jack McGee type character. Like there's we know from the Incredible Hulk 2008 that there is a college student named Jack McGee who videotaped the battle at Culver University. So he could have grown up and became a reporter, just like how that's like how the pizza guy grew up to become Peter Parker's teacher.
But then it's also like, okay, so what, like in this new world where She-Hulk is going to be released in, everybody knows that Bruce Banner is the Hulk, right? Like people have to know that by this point. So it's like, okay, he's harnessed
he's literally famous. Yeah. It's based on like how he interacts with kids in Endgame.
Yeah, he saved the damn world, and now he's Professor Hulk /
And that's the reason why it kind of annoyed me how in Spider-Man Far From Home they don't mention Hulk in that film. And the reason I say that annoys me, so at the beginning of the film we see this one of the students created this picture showing all of the Avengers that fought Thanos, but didn't show the Hulk, even though the Hulk is arguably the most famous one of them, and within this the post Thanos world, world based on how he interacts with those kids in Endgame, and so it surprises me that the student didn't put him in there. Also, later in the film, when Peter is asking for who else about other Avengers who could help Fury with his task, he doesn't ask Fury why not the Hulk, which I feel like being the most famous superhero within the universe, as it seems, he would that would be one of the first people to come to mind.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Jeez. Oh my god.
And I think that it has to do with the fact that that maybe, even though Marvel can do whatever references they want to Hulk, Sony has to be more limited because they don't have a deal with Universal. Like Marvel does, but
good point.
But the only thing, but there is one thing going against that, which is that there are Hulk references in Homecoming, both when he stops the bank robbers, and also, I think he was mentioned by one of the other classmates when they were doing a Marry Fuck Kill at the school.
Oh wow! So
but so I don't know what the I don't know what the case is, but I just think that it kind of annoys me with Far From Home, and I also think it's very interesting, and that they very, very much chose to omit him from that, even though it would make sense. Out of all Avengers, he would be mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like
That's a good point.
I also feel like they should have had either one of Hulk or Steve Rogers make a cameo at the beginning of No Way Home, because Peter Parker was on the run, so those people would be great people to give him advice.
Yeah, he could use some help. That's very true.
And I would be surprised if neither of them would be willing to come to him for help him with this situation.
I mean, Steve Rogers is allegedly on the moon.
Oh yeah,
and I think that the Hulk might have been dealing with some stuff that made him back into Bruce Banner. I don't know. We're gonna find out.
Yeah, we'll definitely finding out in She-Hulk. As Sarah tells the cops all these things, we keep flashing to Hulk transforming back into David, and she tells him the Hulk ran off though, and then she yells for David to come see what she has locked in the back room. She knocks on the door asking if he's still in there, causing David to start to freak out, and he jumps out the window. And in the morning, we see Cliff came over saying, looks like a total loss. Sarah tries to say, give us a few days and we'll have this place looking great. And he looks over at Josie, who looks quite saddened by what happened. And he says, as it looks a lot worse than it is. I'm guessing in hopes of cheering her up, just because he wants to get her her endorsement. Sarah says, once we get our so-called help back, we'll get you back in business in no time. And then Josie hits the seat in her anger. And then Josie says, Cliff, you can have my endorsement. I'll sign whatever you want. Talk to people for you. Shake 1,000 hands. Anything to keep Kelly from leading the union. And David starts walking back to the tavern, but he sees Jack McGee walking out is outside talking to Victor. So he hides behind a bush. We hear Jack ask, is that it? And Victor responds, what more do you want, mister? Do you think I could invent something like that? And David sees Cliff leaving, and then Josie walking up to Jack. He says to her, I'd like a word with you about that bartender you mentioned. Victor cuts him off, saying, nobody's seen him since last night. And Jack says, and Josie sends Victor inside. Jack asks that she call him when David gets back. He doesn't mention David by name, obviously, because he doesn't know his name, but that it would be worth her while for publicity. She tells him, I don't think much of your newspaper, Mr. McGee. And
ouch!
Yep. And I remember David saying something quite similar to him in the pilot episodes. I think it was I think that was a kind of nice callback to have that in the season finale.
Yeah.
Agreed. David comes out from behind the bush as Jack leaves. We then see inside. Sarah says to Josie, you're not gonna believe it. It not a chip on it, as she hands Josie a glass. Josie says, well, if there's one unbroken glass, there has to be others. And that's what I wrote down. That I actually don't think so. I'm guessing the reason that this glass isn't broken is that it's from that one guy who kept just drinking his beer while everyone else fought. But
doesn't she sound like an idealistic politician? She'd be she should be the new president of the Dock Workers Union.
Yeah, that'll be great, but I bet probably with the times they would not have allowed that.
No, probably not.
Sadly,
very sad.
Yes. So the she tells Sarah she's gotta use all her savings in the bank to reopen by the end of the week. But she tells Sarah that, and then Ozzy says, David, I'm glad you're all right. As David walks inside, and David says, well, I'm fine, I think. And Sarah asks what happened to him last night. And he explains, once I got thrown out of the bar doors, I was knocked out. I can't remember. She frantically asked, you didn't see it? You didn't see the Jolly Green Giant? And which I think is another callback to the pilot, as I think I remember Hulk got called the Jolly Green Giant in the pilot as well.
Nice.
Which is nice having these callbacks.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So David says, I'm glad no one got hurt. Victor pipes up, I got hurt, my back. And then and Sarah again and goes to scald him for his back hurting.
Just what you need. You need someone like Sarah to pipe him down. Like, of course his back hurts. Everyone's back hurts. Obviously, we're not going to give Victor as much work as the other people. Shut up about your back. We know you skirt around responsibilities already. It's part of this weird ecosystem we've created of people who complain and run this bar.
Yeah. So
sorry.
the next,
sorry.
No, it's all right.
It's my own job experience
you don't
coming into play there.
You don't need to ever apologize on here. So David tells her he's leaving for the job in New Orleans. And Josie says, at least you waited till I was strong enough to take it. That this is just enough to make me really angry. She lets him know that
found very interesting.
What did you find really interesting?
Just the way that they deal with her mourning her husband is very interesting. They talk about leaning on someone, and you have to stand on your own 2 feet, and that's the theme of the episode as far as her character is supposed to go. And so in those times, it was very much more, you don't lean on others, don't do that for too long, that's weird. Whereas nowadays it's like, no, don't feel shamed about leaning on someone.
Yeah,
that's normal. That's an expression of grief. That's an important part of depression, and not stigmatizing mental illness. And you have to be honest with people. So it's a really interesting thing to see this, especially in the specific scenario where a mourning widow is dealing with her dead husband who ran the business with her, and now she's running the business by herself, and she's leaning on people too much, and she's, oh, thank God, sounds like you're finally on your own 2 feet and stuff. It's a very strange dynamic shift from what we would encourage today.
Definitely.
I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just very much a telling sign of the times.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the next thing I wrote down was that let's see, she lets him know that she endorsed Cliff. She asked if he's sure he has to go. It's not every day she meets a fisherman who can stand her cooking. She says, you take that job in New Orleans, and if you don't write me, I'll come looking for you. And he says, I'll make sure not to write you then.
It's another wonderful little flirty relationship he has with quippy banter back and forth. It's nice.
No, if anything, he should definitely want to write her so that she doesn't come looking for him.
Well, he wants her to know that if she came to find him, he wouldn't be mad about it. You know, he clearly likes her. But
just say like it would probably be bad for him on the run if one of these the people from his last place followed him, and 100%. Jack saw that person.
Yeah,
he would start making connections.
Very true. It's weird because he's saying these things under the guise of he'll be easy to find with a fake name and everything else. It's like, yeah,
well,
well,
they don't
you know what,
he's
I
going
won't
to
write
have
you,
a
so you
fake
can go.
name.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. Is like he's a charming guy with these little quips and flirts that he does, but at the same time, he has no interest in her actually finding him because his name has not been his actual name the whole time. So it's like he's just lying to everybody, but doesn't want them to feel bad. So I think he just assumes that he's like a passing ship in the night. Not to fit in with the waterfront theme too much, but yeah, I think that he just assumes that they'll forget him when he's gone, maybe.
Yeah. Which he'll probably forget all of them when he's gone.
He has already. Yeah. What's he had, like 6 girlfriends since his wife?
Yep. Almost every episode he has a love interest. So I wrote that it feels weird he's trying to leave halfway through the episode. And even though this is not to be the case, it'll be the case for someone else in the episode, but I wrote that something's gonna stop him. I think he's gonna be kidnapped. And
good instinct. You can tell a kidnapping when you smell one. Yeah.
Though he wasn't the one who was kidnapped.
No, but it was in the air.
Yep. So David, as he leaves, he says goodbye to everyone and to Victor. Take care of your back. And we get we get this weird zoom in on Josie as Sarah says, "No matter what, how good they seem, they always end up leaving." And Josie says he's not like that. Did you notice a weird zoom in on her?
There was a couple weird in this scene. There was a couple weird zoom ins, and then a weird zoom out when she grabbed a table and put it upright. It was like suddenly like really weird camera actions that they were trying to hide boom mics or something. I don't know. That whole scene seemed really like it was done post production. Yeah.
So let's see. And then back at the docks, Marty says, "Come on, we gotta get all the stuff loaded." And then we see David, who and I was guessing. I was guessing at that moment that he was coming to confront Marty. I can't imagine. I couldn't imagine that would go well. David sees Cliff, confirming my suspicions that Cliff is bad. And Cliff tells Marty that last night he finally got her to endorse him. That after last night he finally got her to endorse him. And then Marty says, "It's about time." Cliff says, "As I'll be happy when the election is over, and that there's too much violence." And Marty says, "What are you talking about? There's only been a few little accidents." And Cliff says, "I've had my fill of your little accidents. Was Frank a little accident?" And Marty responds, "Come off. Would you rather he be here to blow the whistle on us?" And after hearing the conversation, David heads out of there, and then we see Josie at Frank's old office. She starts playing some music that makes her smile, and that felt really nice seeing.
Wait, I got one thing to say about Hammond and Cliff and Hammond meeting. Don't you love it when villains get together at the docks and explain everything that they've done wrong together all at once within earshot of our hero? Isn't that the greatest?
Yeah,
when they go, "You know what else did we do? Oh yeah, we killed that guy together." See,
it's so great for the hero.
It's perfect. It's like he didn't even have to do any other work other than sneaking underneath that one little truck that he could then see and hear and
Why
see
was
up
he
their
going
shorts.
why was he going to the docks in the first place?
I don't know.
Honestly,
You said
because
to confront Hammond. I thought that was right.
Confront him, but honestly, thinking back, I'm like, he's trying to leave. Why does he care to confront this guy that he doesn't even actually know is involved in anything? Why is he coming over here unless he was planning on taking one of those ships to head to his next area? Which why would you go on a shipping trip, a ship to get where your next place is?
Trip. Yeah, that would take a long ass time. And just like Mark Ruffalo says, oh, they want me in a compressed metal container or whatever. Is like, yeah, you don't want the Hulk on a ship. That's not a good place for him.
No, I bet there's an episode of this show that where he's on a
submarine
ship, or a submarine.
Especially,
I bet there's gotta be without it.
He was already on a 747. I guarantee he's on a freaking U-boat of some kind.
Definitely.
But yeah, as you were saying, the scene where Cliff walks in on Frank's tape.
Yeah, so she pours herself some coffee. The music stops. We hear a message from Frank with evidence about what's happening at the docks. Cliff walks in behind her and starts walking towards her as he hears the recording. He takes out the tape, and then Josie says, "It's what we've been searching for." And Cliff says, "Yes, it is." And then back at the tavern, David comes in asking where Josie is, and Sarah teases him about his severance pay, even though he already told Josie he does not want that. And he tells her everything that's happened. And she says, "What? Josie is down at Frank's office to be alone."
Oh shit.
And then
he explains everything so quickly.
Yeah.
This is the first time I feel like he's really leaned on a bunch of people like immediately.
Oh yeah. So David calls as Cliff and Josie are heading out, and which so heading out as Josie thinks it's the police, but I wrote that I don't think that's gonna happen. And at the time, which we know what happens now, but Cliff picks up the phone and says Josie's not here, and then
he's like, "She's not here.
Yeah,
goodbye." But in the meantime, she's like, "Who is it? Who is it, Cliff?"
Yeah,
goodbye.
So then David borrows Sarah's clunker of a car, and tells her to call the police. Clunker is what they call her car, but honestly, though, me looking at her car, I don't think it was actually that much of a clunker. I think it actually looked kind of nice.
100%. That clunker pulled out of there. He got in that clunker of Sarah's, and he popped out of there faster than the middle button of most of my dress shirts. He zoomed out of there. I got one more joke for you. He disappeared down the road faster than Amber Heard's movie career. That one's gonna make more sense in a couple of weeks. That one's gonna make a lot more sense. But yeah, this is the best driving I've ever seen David do. David Barton in this episode, by the way, which I don't think we got that info until like maybe 2 minutes ago in the episode. But his last name in this episode is Barton. Much like
so do you think that based on what's happened at trial that Amber is going to get fired?
I want nothing more than Amber to go away for a while, and I don't mean in prison, but just be like please don't give her Aquaman 2 or 3 or any more.
I actually think that there's a very big chance that they will fire her. Not even because of everything that she's done, but because they have another controversy going on right now with Warner Brothers with Ezra Miller, and and it's easier for them to fire her than it is to fire Ezra Miller, because she's not the lead of a film, and so and it will look good on them if they do one good thing, and then a lot of people will forget about the Ezra Miller situation.
Wait, does she have a controversy with Ezra Miller?
No. She's
Okay.
she has controversy going on,
Yeah,
and Ezra Miller also has a controversy going on. It's easier to get rid of her, and most people, and this is honestly sad to say, but most people will probably forget about what's going on with Ezra Miller and just be like praising Warner Brothers for doing one good thing.
Well, so, I mean, like with Ezra Miller, what I understand about his case is that he needs to seek some freaking help, and has a lot of learning to do. Maybe he's salvageable. Maybe his career is salvageable. Amber Heard should not have the career she currently has when you think of how destroyed Johnny Depp's career has been since 2016. This guy's like this. When I was a kid, that was the acting. Definitely. That guy was so kind to people and so freaking good. Then I thought he was an abuser, and I wrote him off. I was like, I don't like him anymore, and I didn't know all the facts. Obviously,
I from the beginning actually believed Johnny, because I believed him mostly because I saw how Amber Heard supposedly right after one of the times where she beat him ate her to an inch of her life, immediately after that she went on a late night talk show, and she looked she did not look like she'd been beaten at all. So I was like, no, I don't believe you at all. But I just believe mainly that Warner Bros. Will do this. They probably see this as like see the trial as like, ooh, this is an out, so we don't have to deal with our other controversy. It's harder to deal with.
I would agree.
And also because Warner Brothers is now under new management, so which means and they're probably going to be even more pressured to do something than if they had not been in immediately under new management when these controversies all came out. So
good point. Very good point. And honestly, like I know that there's fans of her character from Aquaman, the Aquaman movies, but like I'm going, you could cast so many better people to play that character. Like just get someone else, please. Like let's just let Johnny Depp be fine for a while, but like get her the hell out of those big franchises where she's making a shit ton of money for doing very little.
She's not
that good.
I can't think of a single Mera scene where I'm like, oh, this is extraordinary acting at all.
Oh man, those parts with Mera were so good in Aquaman 1. Oh, it's the best part of the movie. Well, fuck off. It's not the best part at all.
Oh, it's so good that they in the Snyder cut they gave her a British accent. Huh? Why the hell did you change your accent? Why did they change her accents?
In the first Aquaman movie, we gave her red hair beyond belief, and then we gave her in the Snyder cut a British accent beyond belief. You know what? Those two things don't make a whole lot of sense, and I think you just made a character that was beyond belief, and you should have hired maybe. And you know who's freed up recently? Scarlett Johansson. I think she might make a great Mera. Just saying.
I was thinking Johnny Depp would make a great Mera.
Can you imagine? He takes over the role.
That would be so much more entertaining than what she does. That would be so much more entertaining, and also that would be such a dub for him. Not only does he be able to get her fired, but he takes her role. It'll be such a dub. I actually really want to see that happen, even though I know it won't.
Arthur, not only Arthur am I in love with you, but you're the king. Wouldn't that be great?
That was
That'd be great.
Someone
Yes.
suggested he just act like he's Jack Sparrow, but he looks like but he has a Mera look. It would be great.
Savvy, where is all the rum dog? Yes, I'd love. Oh my God, please.
Oh, that'd be so great.
This is how much I give a shit about the DC EU. Is I would like that to happen right now, please.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That would be great. I have no problem.
And I feel like him and Jason Momoa would probably have a lot of chemistry together. They would be hilarious, this duo.
It would just add to Jason Momoa's track record of career moves that it wouldn't even be a career move for him, but he has gotten to work with some of the best fucking people in the biz, and he started his big boom in Hollywood was from Game of Thrones, him playing a character that just said no, and that's it. And that's all he said for like his biggest episode was just him saying no for 5 minutes. And then people were like, he's cool. I like him. And then he's just super nice and like really hot.
Yeah,
and,
people he seems like a great guy in real life too. So
he does. Yeah. And I want the best for Momoa. I want the best for Depp. I want Amber Heard to seek help and to
stop shitting on beds.
Oh my God. Human fecal matter. That's the way I remember him saying it, and I love it.
Oh
and
God.
I hate it at the same time. I hate that it happened to him, but I love the way he said it for the purposes
I
of
like that he's able respectful. To years since he's able to laugh about it. The fact that happened.
Yeah, he's like, it's appalling. Human fecal matter.
Yep. Oh my God. So I
have no idea where we left off.
Yeah. So we get another really suspenseful scene as David drives as fast as he can, and we see Josie walking with Cliff, and just as David gets there, they drive away. And this didn't end up really being the case, but I honestly wish it was. And I wrote that I think this might mean we get a car chase. But sadly, it did. But we didn't really get much of a car chase. Just David sneaking with his car behind him. So the next scene is back at the docks. Cliff and Josie arrive, and Josie asks, "What's wrong?" Cliff responds, "Nothing. I just need my shipping decks." They then drive into the docks, and we see David slowly trailing behind them. Josie figures out that Cliff and Marty are working together, and she asks, "Why? Frank gave you everything." He says, "No, he didn't. I went to him for help with gambling debts, and he turned me down. He wanted me to resign." And then Josie runs out of the car where Marty catches her.
I have to say, in this moment, Cliff's confession, this scene with Josie solidified his character for me, and I'll rank my villains. I have a villain ranking for the end of this. The choices the actor made to act this scene out, James Sicking, he really swayed me as far as the fact that he gave zero eye contact. He couldn't look Josie in the face. He'd been a longtime friend of her and Frank's, and just the acting choices he did here made me like this episode more. Because if Josie's gonna weigh this episode down, somehow Cliff lifted it up, and that is not a comment on women or men. I'm just saying that Josie's character, Cliff's character
was not great.
Yeah. Very different.
Yeah. So the next thing I wrote down is that Cliff puts a cloth in her mouth and says, it says, "I had to bring her here. She knows everything." We then see David outside trying to get in, and they tie her up and leave. One of them says, "What if someone finds her?" The other says, "Don't worry, this stuff won't be loaded till tomorrow. No one will come in here. She'll be long gone by then." And I wrote, "What? You wouldn't die after just one day. I don't think that she would die after that. But
But they're
whatever.
not expecting a big green monster to pop her out of there either.
Yeah.
Hero, big green hero.
David is sneaking around trying to find a way in, and Josie sees him through a window. David climbs onto the roof and finds a hatch down to the room she's in, and then David gets over to her and ungags her. We see a Cliff and Marty talking to the ship's captain, and Marty tells him he needs to take Josie out to sea if they want to continue doing what they do. David and Josie find an exit door, but the three bad guys see them and start chasing as David and Josie go back into the door. Marty pulls out a gun on for the chase, and this is a pretty long chase. Josie finally trips over a box and knocked herself out. So now David has to carry her. Marty catches them saying, "Hold it right there, Mr. Bartender." And with this, I realized when he said that David probably chose the name Barton because as his last name this time, because as bartender.
Yep.
Yep.
It'd be very weird to say, "Oh, what's your bartender's name?" "Oh, Mr. Bartender." Oh my goodness.
Let's see. So,
but yeah, bartender, Barton makes a lot of sense to me. 100%. That's. I
find it hilarious that he did that.
It's cartoonish. He's like, "What's my job here?" "Well, yeah, we need a bartender." And he's like, "What's your name?" "David Barton." That's my name. Yep. Oh, cool. Weird. Coincidental.
Yeah, I can see Sarah saying those exact words.
And then saying, "Help! Help! Stop it!" Yeah. All those things.
So the next thing we see is David said as, "If it isn't the man that's gonna change things on the docks, shouldn't you be the one with the gun, Cliff?" And Cliff responds, "Shut up," and slaps David.
Shut up.
Uh-huh.
Don't tell me how this episode goes.
And then Marty puts the gun to David's head, and the captain arrives saying, "Wait a minute. I didn't figure on this." And I'm not sure what the captain meant by figure on this, but
I think he didn't sign up for murder. I think that's mostly what it means. It's like the bigger body count he has to deal with. It's like, no, I didn't. Look, I barely signed up for one dead person, let alone two. So,
so they put David and Josie in a shipping container, and the captain doesn't like how far this has gone, but Marty tells him to head outside and move the dock crane up close. So he does that, obviously, because Marty has a gun, and they put the container on the crane and start taking it up to the ship. And David starts getting frustrated as he calls for help. And I wrote, I think we know where this is going.
Let me ask you this. How many episodes? Let's forget locked in a room. How many boxes has David been locked in? We got the 747 episode for sure. That was in the brig.
It's a cage count?
That's what I was thinking. The final round, the cage. He's locked in a 747 box. He's locked in a cage. I know that there's some other box but I can't think for the
I,
life of me
yeah,
what
I
the hell
can't
it
remember
was. But it's always either you're locking him in a room or you're locking him in a box. Either way, it's a perfect feature for Hulk to bust the hell out of. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So
Boxes and rooms, man.
then let's see. Okay, so I found it hilarious. So the first shot of him transforming shows David shirtless, and then as Hulk comes out, he has a shirt that's ripping.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense with a kid at all, but I found it funny.
Well, of course, he comes out with the shirt fully ripped off, though, right?
Well, it was ripped on him, and when he comes out, but like the close up of David as Bill Bixby has the Hulk makeup starting to be put on him, and he's shirtless, in it. So and I guess they didn't put make the camera close it up enough to him so it doesn't look weird when he's supposed to have a shirt on. But whatever.
Yeah, it's a weird way to do it. But
yeah, so
I remember what I liked seeing next was like the far away shot of Lou Ferrigno breaking through that crate. Made up for him being locked in a box again, confusion with the shirt. Like, it was just cool to see him busting out of that thing because it was clear that he was up that high. Which was nice. A nice stunt.
I love that too. I wrote that Hawk completely demolishes the container as the people below say it's that thing from the bar. And
so many bystanders comments in this episode. So many at the end. They're like, get out of his way and stuff later. But they're like, everyone has comments, whether they're recorded afterwards or on set. It's just like, that's the most people that have witnessed, I feel, in one go, other than him running through Times Square or Vegas. Like, this is the most we've heard input, I feel, from people.
Yeah. I think the closest would be probably Vegas when performers at the casino saw him coming down the stairs and they all made comments about him.
Sure.
Yeah. So the next thing I wrote down is, and our damn Hulk kicked moment is here. We got a great shot looking directly at it.
Yeah, right at the cake. Definitely a 3-tier angel cake if I've ever seen one. Yeah, probably fondant and buttercream if I'm not mistaken.
Oh man! So Hulk jumps down with Josie in his arms.
I knew you'd love the jump down part. The leap, leap down. You were like, I knew you were nuts about that part.
Yep, I
love it.
I just love Hulk jumping. It's there's just something that is
the idea that it's a
so
jump.
Cool. I don't know.
It's the same thing as to me. It's like the same thing as Jessica Jones. She jumps. She doesn't fly. She's so strong that her jumps look like she's flying. Well, that to me is the same thing with the Hulk. It's all about just being so strong that you can jump that high.
And particularly like in the Hulk 2003 film, like we see he's jumping through these deserts, and like there's something about it just like feels like honestly peaceful. Just seeing him jump, jumping through things, and I think that's really cool that that there's this certain like calm and calm to seeing him jumping. It's a weird thing, but it's just something I really like.
It's one of the things I loved seeing about the Avengers movie, which you're about to talk about again, is him falling off that Quinjet when he loses his cool, and you hear that like, like he flies away because he falls off the Quinjet, but he's fine. And then him jumping around New York and killing all those. What are they called?
The Satari.
the Chitauri killing them one at a time, but jumping against building to building, and even just like propelling himself up to leap off of a building to catch Tony and then hit the ground him first. There's like jumping is part of Hulk's. His body is the weapon, and his jumping is part of the abilities he's throwing his body into. So it's a huge factor for Hulk.
Yeah,
I get it.
So the next thing I wrote down was Hulk starts trying to touch Josie's hair, as he for some reason really likes touching people's hair, as we've found from multiple episodes. He keeps touching people's hair before he turns back into Banner, but the captain rudely hits him with a wooden board, so Hulk chases after him. And I wrote, the captain is gonna take a swim because the Hulk threw him into the water. The Hulk growls, and then Victory flexes over the water. Two guys ran at him with red poles, and Hulk grabbed both their poles and threw the guys by their poles into the water. That was awesome.
All these non-lethal ways to get rid of these innocent people who are trying to defend Josie.
I was I was really debating when writing down my note for that of like making some really inappropriate joke with it.
I don't know what you mean.
Oh yes.
What are you talking about? A red pole joke?
Or saying about him grabbing two poles at once.
I'm not even sure there is a joke there that's better than the way that you sang him throwing the captain into the water. I think that's
the joke I was thinking about saying was double fisting.
Fists and poles combined. He fisted those poles, threw those innocent gentlemen into the water. They both got wet.
And he whacked them off into the water.
Well, you know what? There's always season 2.
Oh God!
I'm sure there'll be many people that Hulk whacks off next season.
Oh my God! So Marty and Cliff run to their vehicle to get away, but Hulk gets there first and just single-handedly grabs the back of the truck so they can't go anywhere. And Cliff asked, "Why aren't you moving?" And Marty responds, "I can't. He's holding it." And Cliff looks back at him, questioning it, and then he says again, "He's holding it."
Yeah, and then he lets them go like a freaking wind-up toy. I loved it so much.
I just found it hilarious how Cliff just so like I
befuddled.
Totally
blown away.
It says he's holding it. So he's holding it.
It's like, man, I don't want to get out of this car now. Let's just crash. So, that would be easier for everyone.
Hulk pulls off the back, like allowing them to crash themselves, and then Hulk goes back to touching Josie's hair, and then Hulk runs off as the cops come. Josie comes to and asks cop, "What happened?" The cop responds, "It's okay, you're safe." And Jack McGee is also there, and he comes up to Josie to get a statement. And we hear someone in the background say, "Where'd he go?" And then the scene fades to black.
Well, there's a moment Jack McGee has with her that's very awkward, but rightly so. And the more I think about it, the more I liked it. He says, he says essentially just staring at her, and she's staring blankly. Jack McGee has just asked her for a statement right after this. She has just found out, she's just woken up from being knocked the hell unconscious. And she's also just found out that her longtime friend of her and her husband is responsible, or at least partially responsible, for her husband's death. And she just stares off into the freaking distance. That's the most I've liked Josie, when she doesn't respond to Jack McGee. In that moment. He's just like, I want a statement. And he's just like,
and I think for a slight moment there, Jack McGee actually, at the end, he realizes this may not be the right time.
Yeah, that's the face I got from him. That's the look I got, was like him going like, I regret saying that a second ago. What else can I could probably interview that guy. He just kind of like looks off like, fuck, I'm an idiot.
So the scene fades to black, and then and it fades into a sign for Josie's Tavern, and Josie shows Sarah a poster for Mr. Kelly's campaign. She says, "Still can't believe it about Cliff, though. Sarah, I need a drink." And Sarah responds, "I think I got something better for you. He's outside. He's just leaving." And then Josie goes out to meet with David. David tells Josie he really has to go this time. And Josie asks if she can help with the trouble he's in, but he says no. Oh, and then and Josie says, "I'll miss you." And they hug. David tells her, "You be good to yourself." And we hear the familiar Lonely Man theme to end the episode and the season.
Yeah, there it is. There it is, man. Season 1 wrapped like a fish at the fish market. Fish, other fish reference, because this episode was all about that. Fish. Yes, no,
that reminds me of a video I remember like 10 years ago. This guy at Fish Market singing, "1 pound fish, very, very good. 1 pound fish, fish." I don't know why. I just was like, that popped into my head when you mentioned Fish Market and fish.
There you go. I mean, perfect sense. That is from the Fish Market. What did you think of this episode? You didn't like it as much.
I think this episode is all right, but I don't think it should have been a finale. I don't think it was a great episode, but I think it was good. I didn't really like Sarah or Victor much. They both seemed like jerks to me. And then maybe this is just because of hearing a Emmy talk about love interest and damsels in distress and the Hulk 2008 review. But I feel like out of all the love interests in the show, Josie felt the most outdated and stereotypical that we've gotten. And but I did love the callbacks to the pilot, and I think it was an interesting change of seeing the format of Hawk instead being the first thing we see, and also David trying to leave from the beginning of the episode.
Fair.
So I think it's an all right episode, but I don't think it's that great. Grade. I as I said, I definitely don't believe it should be a finale. It does not feel at all like it would be a finale to me.
Fair. As far as what I thought about this episode as a whole, I would say this episode is you've kind of convinced me that it's not probably in my top 2. It might be down to my top 4. I really like the final round so much. This one's high though, because there's a few things that saved it for me. I did not like Josie at all. Really didn't like her character. What saved it for me was the twists. I really enjoyed the fact that Cliff was really the one at fault, and his acting in the end really saved it for me. I think as far as antagonist goes, he's up there, and I'll give you my list. But I'd say the earthquake episode and the pilot episode are still a little bit higher, including as well as the final round. So I might make this my fourth favorite episode.
Okay.
Just based on the complexity of the episode and the twists involved, and that it wasn't your typical, like, I feel like there's quite a few in the middle of this season that are just frankly doubles of each other. So
yeah, I think even though I really liked the one in on Times Square, I do admit it is a bit of a copy of the final round episode, with at least the what the villains are trying to do.
Yes, 100%. The
So
villains are so
that.
forgettable. They're so forgettable in Terror in Times Square because they did a better job in the final round episode with the same exact tropes.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my list?
Okay.
I've got two lists.
All right.
David Banner love interests for season 1.
Okay.
From worst to best. Okay.
I think I already know what's going to be the worst.
Who do you think is going to be the worst?
Josie.
Hey! Yes, yeah. Josie, the waterfront story. Thumbs down, fart noise. So Joni is my number. That's, by the way, Josie is my 6th favorite. There's only 6. So Joni from episode 9, Never Give a Trucker an Even Break.
That there's only a 6. It felt to me like those like almost every episode. Exactly. And not half.
I thought the same thing myself, and these are only including the episodes that there is a possible love interest. And there might be a couple of characters that he winked at, but like he's a very flirty character. But I really don't consider the other 6 in this 12 episodes, if there were any, because there isn't one in the final round. There isn't one in the 747 episode. There really isn't a lot. About half the episodes, really, but it does seem like more. You're right. So my last place one is Josie. My 5th favorite, or second last, is Joni from the Never Give a Trucker an Even Break, because you didn't know that she was supposed to be a love interest until about 1 minute before the episode ended, which I thought was stupid. Really thought that she was a good friend of David's until that moment. I really hated that. 4th favorite would be Dr. Claudia Baxter. As much as I remember her name, I find her character particularly forgettable. As much as I love that episode, I would call it maybe in my middle rung of episodes. 3rd favorite is Kathy from the Hulk Breaks Las Vegas, because she dealt cards and was incredibly uncomplicated. Nobody trying to kill her or nothing. She just dealt some cards. And if anything, she said, "Hey, I bet Jack McGee dressed up in a green suit for that article," and it was funny. I like Kathy. 2nd favorite ever is Carol Abrams from Terror in Times Square. I think aside from Dr. Marks, Carol and David, they had the best chemistry together.
Oh yeah, I really loved them together. I love the jokes that they made with each other. I think that episode, if I remember, it was the first time there was any sexual innuendo in the show, which was really nice to see, because it's kind of surprising to see in a network television show from the 70s. Yep.
They got a very good chemistry and good flirt interaction. And and in no way that was harmful, and she didn't end up being a villain or anything. She was quite sweet. She was in med school, like everything the guy loves, except he has to leave because he's the Hulk, and that's New York. And of course, my number 1 of the whole season is Dr. Elena Marks, because no one can beat Dr. Elena Marks. She honestly will forever be sorely missed from the series, I feel. But maybe he meets her twin sister in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Now, one of them, I can't remember if it was actually like fully a love interest or not. You didn't mention, but I remember like they maybe slightly like beside there, which I remember it feeling a little weird, was the relationship between David and the girl in Death in the Family, the second episode.
The young girl, yes.
That was a little weird
Griffith's girl, yeah.
Because it kind of seemed like she was supposed to be underage.
I mean, even if she was slightly over age, I feel that he was more looking out for her in a guardian kind
there
of
was
scenario.
definitely characters in that episode who were lusting over her, even though it was very inappropriate that they were.
Yes, it was mainly the henchman character, the lead henchman, who wasn't really privy to the.
Well, if I remember right, I think if I remember right, he thought that David was trying to get with her.
Yeah,
and he wanted to beat him up because he wanted to be with her.
Yeah.
So,
his desire for her was more inappropriate because that age difference was nuts, and David didn't actually have anything to do with her. And she was very much like just over the age of 18 or 19. It was weird. Yeah. Honorable mention is to Dr. Diane Joseph from the Earthquakes Happen episode, because she's a doctor and I find her hot.
I think that was a bit of a chemistry between them.
For sure. They flirted for sure.
Yeah. And though you say that there was more chemistry between her and the other guy who worked there, I actually think probably there was more chemistry between her and David than the guy who worked there.
That's fair. And I'd say that that's true of earlier scenes, but I just thought it was very strange the way they acted that last scene in the Earthquakes, because it was so out of left field that they looked into each other's eyes and they were like, we're gonna work together better, and then it just seemed like they were gonna make out, and you're like, what are you doing? Like the reporter just asked you a question, calm down. But yeah, here's you want to know my antagonists list?
Okay.
Top to bottom or bottom to top? I'll do bottom to top. So shittiest antagonist of the whole season was Ted, the truck driver from Never Give a Trucker an Even Break. Ted the trucker not only sucked as a character, he wasn't a very good actor. I did not like Ted. He bored the shit out of me. Second worst was Phil from the 747 episode. Though he did try to lock David in a steel box and kick him off a plane, but he also spilled all that Kool-Aid. So
he was defeated really quickly.
Yeah, that guy sucked on principle alone. Number 9, 9th place is Jason Lair from the Terror in Times Square. Super forgettable mob boss. Yeah. Tom Elder in the Hulk Breaks Las Vegas, almost as forgettable as Jason, as a super forgettable mob boss.
You mean he's not as good at it as Vincent D'Onofrio playing Kingpin?
I would say no. All of them are much worse than Vincent D'Onofrio playing Kingpin. Of course. Most of them are much worse than the mob characters that were playing the bad guys in Punisher Warzone, which no one fucking watches. So there you go. The next one I have is Carl from The Beast Within. Carl was intimidating, and I appreciated that he was a henchman who stepped up and became the big bad when the other guy didn't have the stomach for it. So I liked that about Carl. So Carl from episode 4, season 4. Episode 4 gets 7th place. 6th place goes to Dr. Rhodes from Life and Death. He was awkward as hell, and I didn't hate it. I liked Dr. Rhodes. As far as his menacingness, he was very creepy. Yeah. Margaret Griffith, sorry, and Dr. Bonifant take 5th place for me from Death in the Family, episode 2. She was vicious, and he played Kit from Knight Rider and Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World, so I can't go wrong with him.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. 4th place goes to Mr. Sarajevo from the final round. He was a rough and tumble city mobster villain. It's a shame he wasn't the villain for the New York episode because he would have been great. Number 3 was
I
Cliff.
do wonder throughout the show's run if there are any reoccurring villains where between multiple episodes, which would be really cool if they try to do. But I would be surprised.
I'd be surprised too, but I'd love it.
Yeah,
it wouldn't like this show. I'm so foreign to this show that it wouldn't surprise me if they did something with the villains they've created already, right?
I definitely don't think they would do a team up thing because that would be too comic booky for this show.
Yeah, they're not going to do like the Legion of Doom or something like that with these characters, at least. 3rd place goes to Cliff and Hammond from this episode. I loved Cliff's performance, especially in the confession moments. He did a great job, and to be the trustworthy friend of her husband and then have that whole twist at the end was great. 2nd place goes to James Jolson and Sheila Cantrell from episode 5 of Guilt, Models, and Murders. I love their acting, honestly. I think that the fact that he was the handsome British magazine icon and she was the double-crossing model / murderer who knew karate, I thought that was fantastic. And my number 1 antagonist for the season is the Earthquake. I think the Earthquake did a really great job posing a threat and a formidable challenge against the Hulk, who could easily create an earthquake himself if he really tried. That is my summary of the season.
Now, since it's basically Jack McGee was the main antagonist for the first episode, where would you put him in there?
See, he's growing on me, so I don't even look at him as an antagonist so much as a story
just
pusher.
In that first episode, he was really
in that first
quote unquote antagonist for that first episode. So there was no other sort of antagonist in the episode.
I would still put him above the Earthquake.
Okay.
So he's still number 1 in my books, but I still look at him as a character with the potential for growth outside of all these other
I do really hope we get a full episode where he's the main star because I think it would really help him as a character.
It would be cool as hell.
It would very much surprise me if they did that, just because this doesn't really feel like a show where they would have episodes that David Banner could be not the main character.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so my trivia from the episode. First thing is very much an obvious one that that's from IMDb is that Banner uses the last name Barton, which is the real name of Hawkeye, of Clint Barton. And then the goofs from IMDb, when Hawk jumps to the ground for a second, you can see the mat that Lou jumps on. And then when Hawk moves the pool table, the rope that is used to pull it can clearly be seen. And then Hawk is clearly wearing green slippers at the end of the episode while he's running in the shipyard.
So clearly someone noticed his orange underfoot. That is a shame. I didn't notice the string attached to the pool table. That's
I didn't notice.
Crazy.
I didn't notice it, but either.
Wasn't looking. Yeah.
Then I got some trivia from the Hulk Wiki, which is this is the first of 8 episodes that are directed by Reza Badlili. And this is also one of the few episodes that begins with David as the Hulk. The Leah Larkin's character Josie also has the last name Larkin that her actress has. As the Galveston and police officers all wear Texas Department of Public Safety uniforms and Texas cowboy hats, but with the Galveston Police Department insignia on their sleeves. And then and there was one bit of trivia that I actually found myself, wasn't from any other source. So I was looking at the different actors there in the episode, and the actor who plays is Victor, which is William Billy Benedict. And he apparently he was no stranger to comic book TV, as he also appeared in The Adventures of Captain Marvel in 1941. And that's the character that is now known as Shazam.
What the hell? Oh
Yeah.
my god, I gotta look that up.
Yep. And then the answer to the trivia question from earlier.
Oh yeah.
You got it. I mostly correct. So it was a tuna melt.
What did I say? Tuna on rye?
A tuna on rye.
Ah, shit.
There was
So
definitely
close.
something in the scene about rye. I think it was I think it was Dr. Strange saying, "Do you want me to get you a metaphysical ham on rye?"
Ah,
if I remember right.
My brain bled them together.
It's all right.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So
that's what do I get? Half points?
Yes.
For the accumulative season. I get like 2 points out of 100. I'm happy with that.
All right. So is there anything you want to say before I end off this episode?
Despite this last episode feeling like it could have taken place anywhere in the season, I feel like this first season was getting a lot of things under its feet. There were a lot of other sci-fi shows going on at the time that I think it was nice to see that they took a chance on a comic book movie or comic book show like Incredible Hulk. Even if they had to kind of bend it to be similar to the other shows that were popular. But I think that seeing something like this first season, I think that they're going to get weirder. And I'm excited for it. I know that they get a little bit at least. So I'm super stoked that you asked me to do this.
I've seen a lot of stuff for what's gonna be in so later seasons, and it definitely gets weirder.
And I think that's very telling and very, very similar to a sci-fi show. Even if you watch some sci-fi shows of the 90s that had the ability to go on for 4 or 5 seasons, their weirdest seasons are the later ones. So where they get braver and they get more challenges, and sometimes they find out that they're going to get canceled, so they go balls to the walls crazy in the last couple episodes because they know this is the time to do it. Because there's no other chance. So things like X-Files and Outer Limits and things back in the day, like the $300 Man. $300 Man? No.
The $1 million man.
That's just I was thinking of the super discount version. Sorry.
And we got the Bionic Woman.
The Bionic Woman, yeah. That kind of thing gets weirder as you go. And what I mean by when I say weirder, what I mean is bolder. So I'm excited for season 2.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm very excited to be able to get to there. And so all I would like to say before I end this off is that Thank you, everyone who has listened throughout this entire first season of the '70s Incredible Hulk TV show. Oh, it feels a bit surreal and incredible to finally get here to the end of the season. So, just thank you for listening, and hope you continue along with us throughout the entire rest of this show. Uh, um, so thank you for listening. And if you like this gamma analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. And if you'd love to like to hear more, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on the episode, so please let me know your thoughts on it. And if you'd like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more gamma analyses coming from me, so keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Smash Trivia John, signing off.